This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, email it to us, box13@greatdetectives.net. Give us a call, 208-991-4783, and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. Well, before we do get started, I want to send a special thank you to some folks who have contributed to the show during our listener support campaign. We received nice donations from Howard and Stephen, both of which receive access to our premium site. And I also sent along to Howard, at his request, a copy of Zorro and the Pirate Raiders from the Colonial Radio Theater of the Air. And thanks to everyone else who contributed during our listener support campaign. Now it's time for today's episode of Barrie Craig, Confidential Investigator, The Deadly Fight.
William Gargan stars as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
The fellow in the driver's seat is always much better off, folks, especially if it's the morgue wagon.
The National Broadcasting Company presents William Gargan in another transcribed drama of mystery and adventure with America's #1 detective, Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Barrie Craig speaking. A thing that defeats a confidential operator is his heart. I don't mean the wear and tear that comes of chasing creeps around the landscape. Heart. Meaning the way you get involved emotionally with a case or a client. Like a doctor gets involved with a patient or fights not to. The human angle. You go for it with a tear in your eye and a throb in your throat. And you're no longer working for a fee. No, sir, you're a dedicated sucker, like I was in the case of Boxer Doyle, a ring champ of his day. My first introduction to the strange Boxer Doyle story began in the Times Square Penny Arcade. I'd stopped in for 2 bits worth of practice on the rifle range. And so I could check on whether a punchy-looking guy in an Eisenhower jacket had been dogging it after me, as I suspected he was. The Eisenhower jacket was watching my marksmanship, all eyes. I can shoot okay, huh, friend?
Yeah, bullseye every time.
There's a fly squatting on your ear. Watch how I do.
I said you were good. You don't have to prove anything.
46th and Park, then west to Broadway, then south to here. Why so attached to me, friend?
I was making up my mind.
About?
Whether you were the guy for the job, Craig.
And?
I'm throwing my business your way. Lay down the rifle, I'll tell you.
I can't wait to hear.
It's only an hour's work, nothing complicated, everything on the up and up.
So much for the preamble.
You represent me confidentially in an auction sale at the Phoenix Galleries tonight.
What am I bidding on?
A diamond belt that once belonged to Boxer Doyle when he was welterweight champ. Mrs. Doyle's put it up for sale. I want it.
Why?
Sentiment. Boxer Doyle's been one of my heroes.
You can still bid on it yourself.
You don't want the job?
How much can I be losing?
$500.
High pay for an hour's work.
Get me the diamond belt.
What's the ceiling, Mr.
Bid up to $5,000 if you have to.
And if I'm outbid?
I don't think so. It's been appraised at only $1,500.
Sentiment is expensive.
Come to a side. I'll count you out the dough.
Sentiment wearing a fancy price tag. I sat in at the Phoenix Galleries. There wasn't too much bidding competition.
I bid $2,000, ladies and gentlemen, for the diamond belt. $2,000. Going once, going twice.
2,500.
2,500. I bid 2,500. Bid lively, please. 2,500. Going once, going twice. Are there any more bids? Fair warning. Sold to
Craig. Barrie Craig. I turned the belt over to Mr. Mooney, collected my 5 bills, and wrote them off as a sentimental screwball. A weird deal, kind of, but legitimate on the face of it. So why push my imagination? Another day, another dollar, I figured it. That is, until Lieutenant Trav Rogers popped into Ronzini's pizzeria to drop a poison pellet in my minestrone soup.
How's the soup, Craig?
9 parts water, 1 part can, as usual.
A bowl of minestrone, Tony. Mind company, Craig?
The eats are public. Just don't jostle my elbow.
I never do when a man's eating soup.
Police protocol?
Emily Post.
No.
I came across an interesting item in the morning paper.
There are Iranians in Iran.
Back page, where they put the fellas in oddities. I'm reading. Diamond belt, once presented to Boxer Doyle by the Sports Writers Award Committee, was sold by the Phoenix Auction Galleries by order of Mrs. Boxer Doyle. The belt was purchased by Barrie Craig, whose successful bid was $2,500. You spend money, Craig.
What's money for?
Same morning paper. An inside page now. A muckraking column titled Sports Topics. I'm reading. Memo to the police. The auctioning of Boxer Doyle's diamond belt at the Phoenix Galleries last night prompts an old question. What did happen to Doyle? And who's covering up why? Who'd you buy that belt for, Craig?
Why such a guess?
You're not rich enough. Or sentimental enough.
It's confidential, sorry.
Think again.
And eat soup?
Boxer Doyle disappeared years ago. Dropped out of sight, dropped out of the world. The police handled it as a missing persons case. We got nowhere. Now, this business of the belt might be the first significant development in the sticker we've long given up on.
You can hope.
I want to ask your client about his expensive interest in the Boxer Doyle diamond belt, just on the chance.
I'll ask him.
Now, Craig.
I owe him that much discretion, Trav. I'll ask him, then you ask him. I went to ask Mooney. A flea-bitten hotel in the East 20s, where the desk clerk looked like he was dying to frisk you before letting you climb the stairs. Room 4A. I'd been there before, delivering the belt.
Craig, you forgot something?
Yeah, a footprint. I must have left it somewhere on the rug.
Pick it up and go.
Go where you're going?
You use your eyes a lot.
I'd be blind not to see your suitcases packed and ready.
I'm moving downstairs. 4th floor's too high up. I get nosebleeds in altitude. You're going to turn out to be a pest.
I am?
Look, you've been paid.
Generously. No quarrel.
Then ring off. Go look for your next job.
This thing keeps building, and I've got my next job. Mysteries fascinate me.
I made a mistake throwing work your way. Craig, what do you want?
Answers. What's your real interest in the missing Boxer Doyle?
I'm only interested in this belt.
Standing pat on your story, huh?
People collect General Grant's platoons and John L. Sullivan's gloves. You've got a personal hero.
And you're crazy sentimental. Okay, then. Let's go.
That sounds like police headquarters.
I promised you to a lieutenant if I got nowhere. You object?
You tell me.
You object. How'd you do it? Sleight of hand?
I ought to kill you.
Good you're fighting the impulse.
You park here while I move downstairs. When you come to, Craig, change your thinking.
I'll make a sincere effort.
I won't turn the gun around the next time.
no use trying to change my thinking. When I came to, the only thought in my head was how to get out of a locked closet. Get out before I died of suffocation. At headquarters, Trav Rogers was overjoyed at the lump on my head.
Craig, the violence means something.
My aching head.
It means there's life in a case that's been in the doldrums for years.
Again, I say, you hope.
Go to it, Craig.
What does that mean?
Find out what happened to Boxer Doyle and who did it to him.
Come again?
Now, Craig, don't be coy.
You want me to work up a case the police gave up on?
That's right.
On whose behalf? What client?
Me. You're representing me very confidentially. The department has a stake in it. Nothing less, say, than its honor. We've been pilloried by the press, sniped at by columnists, abused by 1,000 sports fans who loved Boxer Doyle and who idolize his memory.
Let's see the file on Boxer Doyle.
No. Our files merely tell the story of a failure.
Then where do I start?
There are two important principles after Boxer Doyle himself. Mrs. Doyle and Sam Spyro. Spyro was Doyle's manager and close friend. Barrie, I won't forget this favor.
Don't forget one other thing.
What's that?
My fee, client. Want to commit yourself now?
Why not? The best dinner in town at 21. Steak, caviar, champagne. Corona cigars bigger than chimney stacks. All on me if you come through.
And if I flop?
Hot dogs and an orange drink. On you.
I'll take the proposition up with my ulcer. Mrs. Boxer Doyle, Wilma Doyle, had a henna bleach and the telltale look of an ex-showgirl a little too old and frayed around the edges for the chorus line.
What's this visit about, Mr.
Craig, Barrie Craig. I explained over the phone. I'm a police operative, wondering about the whereabouts of Boxer Doyle.
Isn't it a little late to be wondering?
Maybe. I'll concede that when I say hello to his corpse. But you talk to me.
I've done nothing but talk to the police for years.
But never to me.
I'm fed up talking. He's gone. He went out for a comic book one night and never came back.
Did he leave you comfortably fixed?
All the gold I could carry in my teeth. Doyle was a fast man with a buck. He even tried handing me cigar coupons for table money. Look around you, Copper, and tell me this dump reminds you of Buckingham Palace.
Almost. I missed the crystal chandeliers. An ex-world champ, Doyle made barrels of dough.
And salted it away where I couldn't touch it.
Who could and can?
Sam Spyro, his manager. Sam's got the power of attorney over everything Doyle owned. Except me.
And that diamond belt you auctioned off the other night.
Doyle gave it to me in a weak moment.
All in all, there was no love lost between you and Boxer Doyle.
We fought all the time. Doyle scored KOs that don't appear in the records.
Why would he pick up and disappear?
Whams in his head. Toward the end of our happy marriage, Doyle was 90% off his rocker. I slept with a gun under my pillow in case he went berserk.
What had him down?
His career was behind him. He'd hung up his gloves. Sour, disappointed, and depressed. Hey, you ought to be all out of questions.
One more. Who's in the bedroom?
What kind of a stupid...
The door's open a little. It wasn't when I came in. Who's getting an earful?
My boyfriend.
Boyfriend?
Is it a crime? Doyle walked out here nearly 8 years ago. Steve, come out and be introduced. This is Steve Marcy. Steve Barrie Craig.
A pleasure.
It isn't mutual.
Steve!
Shut up, Wilma. He's not here for your good. I got an earful, Craig, and a line on your angle.
Which is?
To weasel and browbeat Wilma out of her rights as Doyle's widow.
Said rights being?
An accounting of every penny Sam Spyro holds of Doyle's and Wilma's right to cash in Doyle's insurance.
If Doyle's dead.
He's dead. Legally, anyhow. Enough time has elapsed.
You're petitioning the court to have Doyle declared legally dead?
Wilma is.
Oh.
I don't like that wise guy, oh.
You're so full of dislikes, Buster.
And ready to demonstrate.
Oh.
Ooh. Nice right cross. Was it just knuckles or brass knuckle.
My bare fists.
You're a boxer?
I'm a boxer.
The lady's preferences run on a single track.
Get out, Craig.
Sure, but not the way I am. I don't mind nursing my jaw, but not my pride. When the contender comes to, tell him he's a sucker for an uppercut.
I'm sorry, Mr. Craig.
Skip it. I'm out to weasel you, he said. That's both true and false, Wilma, depending on how the facts develop. The guy drops out of the world, and his deserted wife turns out to have a profit motive, and an eager boyfriend with an itching palm. A situation like this pops an ugly word into my head. Murder. On the street, a few doors down from Wilma's tenement palace, somebody blew over to me with the evening mists.
Mind company, Craig?
No, provided you don't say goodbye to me in locked closets.
Keep walking.
I sense a gun, but I don't see it.
You've seen me draw.
Yeah, regular sleight of hand.
Jumping me would be a mistake.
I never want that spelled on my tombstone.
How much, Craig?
How much for what?
For you to hop a plane to Tijuana.
What's there?
High lie.
Never played it.
You're bright. You'll learn.
Is it expensive?
Only if you lose.
What's the maximum I can lose?
$5,000.
When I go, I go.
8.
You'd blow me to an $8,000 vacation?
You got rings under your eyes. Keep getting hit on the head, you'll lose your mind.
That's no joke.
You need to knock off. Rest up. Stick your hand out for the dough.
You really want me to forget about Boxer Doyle?
No changing the subject. We were talking about $8,000.
And what if I'm busting with curiosity about Boxer Doyle?
Craig, don't be funny.
No fooling. I'm still kid enough to be glory-struck over famous sports figures. Enough to be sentimental, like you're sentimental.
You don't want the dough?
What good's my sitting in Tijuana with my mind on something else? I want to know what happened to Doyle. Where did he go? And if murdered, who killed him? And where is the corpus delicti?
Walk ahead of me. Keep walking.
I'm going to get shot in the back?
Maybe. Or maybe not. Maybe today. Maybe tomorrow. Walk.
Walk away from a gun. You don't have to feel the lead to feel shot. You imagine it. The sudden burning heat in your spine. So hot it's ice cold. But Mooney didn't shoot. I just walked away from him into the fog. I finally located Sam Spyro in Kelleher's gymnasium. Collodion and arnica. The place smelled like a surgeon's office.
Watch that left.
Spyro was watching one of his pugs work out. Sam Spyro,
Whatever it is, saving. I'm busy.
your boy will keep while we talk.
Look, I told you. Hey, who are you?
Barrie Craig,
Process server?
confidential investigator.
Is that the same as a cop?
It is.
And say what you mean.
If you'll transfer your interest from your meal ticket a minute, I will.
Hey, I'm not under arrest.
Depends on what's on your conscience. Come on. Watching the kid will only aggravate you.
You think he's that bad?
His arms are too short. Come over where we can talk.
Make it snappy.
Okay. Where's the body buried?
Whose body?
Boxer Doyle.
What makes you think Doyle's dead?
I think you killed him so you could keep the dough he let you hold for him. Or you blew the dough in. The stock market, the horses. So you knocked off Doyle to avoid an accounting and prosecution. When you stop hiding behind a counterfeit laugh,
Doyle's as alive as you.
flattery won't help you.
What makes you so sure he's dead?
8 years. Where does a celebrity keep himself 8 years?
On an island.
What island?
Samoa.
Doing what?
Painting. He got fed up with people. He bought a paint box and a roll of canvas and swam to an island.
Where else does he keep himself?
On a mountaintop. He grew a beard and he's writing the story of his life.
He's in touch with you?
All the time. We're like Corsican brothers, Doyle and me. We communicate all the time. Give me the word I can't think of.
Telepathy.
That's it, telepathy. Every night, promptly 11 p.m., there's a message on my wavelength.
What does it say?
It says, Sam, why can't people mind their own business?
signed boxer.
How much loot of Doyle's are you holding?
I'll remember to count it sometime.
When's Doyle reappearing from wherever he is?
That message I ain't received yet. Now I gotta get back to my boy.
Yeah. Better go wipe his nose or he'll begin bawling for his mama. Over steak burgers and curlicue potatoes, I ran over what I had with Trav Rogers.
So Doyle's both alive and dead.
Depending on whose angle you see it from.
Doyle alive, but on the world, incognito somewhere. Keeps Spyro in charge of Doyle's assets.
And keeps Mrs. Doyle out in the cold. In a crisis, what do you bet Spyro even produces phony picture postcards from Doyle?
And Mrs. Doyle's calling Doyle dead for her own practical reasons.
Insurance, enforcing a widow's legal, accounting from Spyro.
Either one could have murdered Doyle and disposed of the body.
Either one, or their boyfriend Steve.
Or the mysterious Mooney.
Mooney puzzles me.
He was the gunman who originally did the dirty work?
For Wilma or Spyro?
Either one. And now Mooney's busy seeing that the case doesn't get off the ground, blow hot.
I could buy it if one thing didn't stick out.
What thing?
The diamond belt. Mooney's reason for the purchase.
There I'm stumped. Where do you go from here?
For a ride, I think.
A ride?
Parked on the street side of the plate glass. Eyeing me and waiting for me. But don't look now.
Who?
My shadow. The Eisenhower jacket.
Mooney.
I'm going out.
To nab him?
No. Give him all the rain he wants. I've got a feeling he's finally provoked enough to tell me something.
But the risk is...
He could have killed me twice, but didn't. I'll leave the tip. The check's all yours, Lieutenant. I didn't wait to be coaxed to take a ride. I guessed you were waiting to chauffeur me, Mooney.
You've got nerve, Craig.
You've noticed, huh?
And gall.
You sure made a study of me. I won't even bother asking our destination. I'll trust you. Our destination turned out to be the home of a man whose shingle outside a big rambling estate read Dr. Otto Steiner. A round, little nervous man, Steiner, with fluttering hands. It was plain to see that Steiner didn't relish the upcoming session.
Tell Craig about Boxer Doyle, Doc.
Tell Craig, yes. I treated Boxer Doyle.
Get to it, Doc. Tell Craig the condition Doyle was in.
Depressed to a manic state. His vitality, the splendid energies and physique that had carried him so far in his career...
Spell it out in a word, Doc.
Well, Doyle had a wish to self-destruction. He told me he had attempted his own life on 2 occasions. That is about all, I suppose.
That wraps it up.
Not so fast, Mooney. Doc, Doyle was in treatment when he disappeared?
Yes.
How long had you known Boxer Doyle?
Oh, a very long time, Mr. Craig. I was his personal physician and friend for a long time before his breakdown.
Let's get out of here, Craig.
Kind of a fast shuffle, Mooney. Is it deliberate?
I said let's get out of here.
Mooney tacked on a postscript to the doc's testimony over drinks in the nearest roadside tavern. A small beer for me and lots of drinks for Mooney, like a guy drowning a painful memory.
You heard the doc, Craig.
What were you to Doyle?
My name isn't Mooney. Barley. Trainer Barley.
Trainer Barley?
Fame rubs off. I was a ranking contender once until Doyle flattened me.
Sorry, I can quote you baseball batting averages and pitches.
When Doyle stopped me, I joined up with him. As Doyle's trainer. As Doyle's friend.
You were really close to Doyle, huh?
I worshipped the guy. When Doyle went, the book closed for me, too. Now you know why I bought in that belt.
Yeah, now I know.
Now you know why I Didn't bid it in myself.
You didn't want to be identified as Trainer Barley.
Didn't want any publicity on it. Sob stuff in the papers.
The $64 question, mister.
My advice still is, don't ask it, Craig. Do like I've been coaxing you all along. Cancel out, take a vacation. Forget Doyle.
The $64 question, mister.
You'll be stuck keeping a secret.
Maybe.
You blab what I tell you. Make like a cop, disgrace Doyle, and I'll kill you. Doyle tried twice, the doc said. There was a third try.
You're saying that Boxer Doyle committed suicide?
Right in front of me. On a cabin cruiser fishing off the Florida Keys. Doyle was better, I thought. Laughing, cracking jokes, working on a suntan. I took my eyes off him. He went over the side.
Period.
6 hours later, I found him washed against the rocks. I buried him at sea in the middle of the night.
Your reason?
What do you think?
Disgrace. Your word, disgrace. Suicide was a disgrace. Doyle was a heroic legend. You didn't want any tarnish on it.
Not then or now. So close your file on Doyle, Craig, and live. Come on, I'll drive you back to town.
No, thanks. I'll stick around here for a while.
Way out here? What for?
Tie on a bun, maybe, like you did.
What are you up to, Craig?
I could be sad and sentimental, like you're sad and sentimental. Good night, mister. When Trainer Barley tore himself away, I got on the phone. Headquarters, relay this message to Lieutenant Trav Rogers and quick. He's to meet Barrie Craig at Dr. Otto Steiner's in Wentmore, out in Nassau County, as fast as he can make it. Leaving the tavern to hitch a ride to Doc Steiner's, Trainer Barley tried to make good on a threat. Barley shooting from the concealment of roadside bushes. I'd need surgery and electric therapy to recover the use of my left hand. I found my own bush.
I warned you the secret would be hard to keep, Craig.
Call a lie by its right name, mister.
I saw you go to the phone. Now come and get the rest of my gun.
I order you to surrender, Barley.
You're not in a penny arcade now, Craig. No shooting at sitting ducks.
Barley, it's a lost cause. The legend's not half the size of your crazy sentimental fanaticism. Give up, Barley.
I'm finding the range, Craig.
I've found the range. Your voice was the range, Barley. Crawl into the open on your hands and knees, or I'll shoot to kill. Later, after patching up Barley's leg wounds in a private hospital behind Otto Steiner's residence, Trav Rogers and I got to meet Boxer Doyle in the flesh.
Gentlemen, this is Boxer Doyle.
A shrunken man, half as big as the sports world remembered him. He sat in a chair facing a window, vacant to his surroundings, deaf to our voices. Around his waist was a diamond belt held in place by pins.
This was the secret Trainer Barley risked his life to keep?
And Sam Sparrow. Only his wife knew nothing.
A rare disease of the spine. Malignant. Doyle fell away bit by bit to what you see.
How long, Doctor?
Not long. He has nothing left. Only his magnificent fighting heart.
Trav.
Yes, Craig.
When the story gets out, I'm taking over. As crazy fanatic as Trainer Barley. Any tarnish on the legend of a great champ, I'll break heads. Good night, folks. See you next week.
You have been listening to William Gargan in another exciting transcribed mystery drama from the adventures of Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. Tonight's story, The Deadly Fight, was written by John Robert. Next week, it's the strange story titled The Very Odd Job, about which Barrie Craig has this to say.
Next week, I'm hired to deliver a puppet, watch a girl faint, discover a vintage murder, and realize that the only thing that's black as it's painted is a coffin. See you next week, folks.
Featured in the role of Mrs. Doyle was Fran Carlin. Barrie Craig, starring William Gargan, was under the direction of Hyman Brown. This is Don Pardo speaking.
Now, Robert Montgomery presents something different in news analysis on NBC.
Welcome back. Well, a very complex and emotionally involved case, as usual, carried off very nicely by William Gargan, who earned himself a very nice meal the hard way. Well, I do want to let you know, for those of you who have the app or our premium site, we've got another great extra for you. This one features William Gargan in a radio program called Obsession, kind of a darker role for Gargan. Well, now we turn to listener comments and feedback. This one comes from First Lieutenant W. I have very fond memories of old-time radio. I used to listen to old-time radio with my dad while driving on long trips, so this podcast really reminds me of those times with my dad. Last year I was in Iraq and had trouble going to sleep. Thankfully I found these podcasts and they helped me to relax and get to sleep. I listen to them every night before bed. I especially like the radio broadcasts from the Armed Forces Network, as they now broadcast television overseas. So I would watch AFN on TV. It really made me feel a connection to soldiers from previous wars far from home. Thank you for putting together the radio shows in a format that we can all enjoy. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for your service and sacrifice. Glad you're listening out there. And then we have a comment from J-Rock. Says, thank you, Adam, for this great podcast. It really helps me unwind after a long day at work to listen to your podcast. It's fun to listen to these mysteries and try to figure them out before the murder is revealed. Thank you again, Misty. Thanks so much, Misty, and I'll admit that I don't usually make it, and if I make it too easily, I think there may have been something wrong with the script. But definitely appreciate it, Misty. And that will actually do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with Rogues Gallery. Before we do get started, I do want to say another couple thank yous. Special thank yous to those who supported us during the listener support campaign, in particular to Stephen, and also to Ian. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Actually, our first contribution from Belgium. Thank you so much, and we'll send along access to the premium site to both of those listeners. Well, now it's time for today's episode of Rogues Gallery. This one is called Blue Eyes.
The F.W. Fitch Company presents Dick Powell as private investigator Richard Rogue in Rogues Gallery.
Don't despair, use your head and save your hair, use Fitch shampoo.
The F.W. Fitch Company, makers of Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo and Fitch's shaving creams, presents Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogue's Gallery.
Rogue speaking. Call me a silly, impressionable boy if you want to. But when I first laid eyes on Patricia Flynn at that party, I was over the side like a Jacob's ladder. Her hair was as black as a lover's despair. Her eyes were the blue of the washed sky around a rainbow. And she was to feminine architecture what the atom bomb is to science. There's never been anything like it. I liked her, and she liked me. In fact, she seemed to be spending most of the evening trying to be alone with me. But another lovely, bless her, outmaneuvered her. The next day, I went to my office a little late. I was just sitting there at my desk trying to make my checkbook agree with the bank's theories when the door opened. And who walked in was Patricia. I restrained the foolish impulse to grab her and shout, "I love you," by looking bored and saying, "Hello."
Hello, Mr. Rhodes. I guess I should have called for an appointment.
Oh, now, look, first off, you must call me Richard, because I'm going to call you Pat. I'm so glad you came in to see me, Pat. Let's go down to the hunt room and talk things over, shall we?
After a while, if you want to. It sounds charming, but I want to talk to you here alone first.
Oh, well, okay. What shall we talk about?
Mr. Rhodes. Richard.
Thank you.
I know this sounds dramatic, but there have been 2 attempts made on my life in the past 3 weeks.
Well, why would anybody want to harm you?
I don't know. I really don't. There's no reason that I can think of.
Well, you poor kid. Where did these attempts on your life take place?
At our summer place, up on Lake Tecumseh.
Oh, and there's nobody up there with any motive for wanting you out of the way?
Nobody. I don't know whether you've ever been to Lake Tecumseh or not. It's a small resort. Just a few families have cabins there.
Maybe you better start from the beginning. You know, I don't really know much about you. Give me the whole story, will you?
All right. You already know my name. It's Pat Flynn. My father was Michael Flynn, the attorney.
Yes, I knew of him, of course.
Mother was much younger than Dad. And about a year after he died, she married Herbert Lewis, the British artist. He was a widower. He had a daughter, Diane, just my age. She's a lovely girl, very British, English, finishing school, and a wonderful musical education, with the best of friends. She got married about 3 months ago to John Anderson, a boy I've known since he was about 10. They're very happy, and we're all up the lake together.
All staying in the same cottage?
Yes. Well, it isn't exactly a cottage. We all call it that, but it's really rather a large house.
Okay. Now, tell me about the attempts on your life. How'd they happen?
Well, about 3 weeks ago, I got up earlier than the rest of the family. I often do. I went down to the lake for a dip. I'm a pretty good swimmer, and I headed right out to the island in the middle of the lake. I heard a bullet whistle past my head. I dove underwater and swam back toward the shore as long as I could hold my breath. Then I came up. I heard another bullet hit the water not a foot from me. I was frightened to death. I stayed underwater as much as I could until I saw Mother and John coming down for their morning dip. And I swam in and joined them.
Did you tell them about it?
No. I was afraid they'd laugh at me.
There was another attempt later?
Yes. I always have a glass of milk in my room at night. And one night, for no reason at all, I gave it to my cat, Cynthia. And Cynthia died. She had convulsions and died. The veterinary said she'd been poisoned. Somebody tried to poison me.
Look, baby, I think it's about time you're telling somebody about this. There's no future in being murdered, you know. That poisoned milk makes it look like an inside job, doesn't it?
I don't see how it could be anyone in the house, Mr. Rogue. There's only the family and...
No servants?
Only Mary, the cook, and... Oh, well, she's like a mother. She wouldn't want to hurt me. Oh, Richard, I'm scared. I'm supposed to go back up to the lake tomorrow, and I know that the next time they're going to succeed in killing me.
What do you want me to do?
I want you to come up with me as a house guest. No one will know you're an investigator. And Mr. Rogue...
Yes, Pat?
You can protect me.
We'll continue our story in just a moment. First, the three essentials of attractive, healthy-looking hair are 1, cleanliness, 2, manageability, and 3, a fresh, clean fragrance. Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo does all 3 for your hair. It's mild yet efficient shampoo. It cleanses the hair thoroughly of dust, dirt, perspiration, and other unpleasant scalp odors. Leaves the hair smelling fresh and clean. Then, Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo is made from mild coconut and pure vegetable oils. You can use it as often as you like, and it will never leave your hair dry or harsh feeling, but always soft and manageable. It makes your hair easier to comb and easier to keep combed. For clean, fragrant hair that's easy to manage, use Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo regularly. Next time at your barber or beauty shop, ask for a professional application of Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo, or buy an economical bottle at your drug or toilet goods counter. 6 full ounces, 50 cents. Now back to Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogue's Gallery.
I couldn't understand why anybody would want to deprive this ugly old world of Patricia Flynn's beauty. But she was convinced that somebody was trying to promote her to a better land than this, so I accepted her invitation to be a house guest at her family's 18-room cabin on Lake Tecumseh. I'd like to be Uncle Tom in a cabin like that. The living room was a little smaller than the Los Angeles Union Station, but it was much more comfortable. There was a fireplace at each end of it about the size of the entrance to the Hudson Tube. And the room was done in rustic furniture with down cushions. Every place you looked at the walls, you either got an inquisitive look from a defunct moose or a cold stare from a mounted fish. If this was roughing it, I gave up my scouting too early. The first evening, I sat around and talked with Pat's mother, who looked 30, and her stepsister Diane, who looked dandy, and John Anderson, who looked like John Anderson. John was Diane's husband.
We're so happy that you could come up with Patricia, Mr. Rogue. She hasn't been enjoying herself this summer for some reason.
She seems so depressed.
Well, girls with her look should never be depressed.
If I weren't Patricia's mother, I'd think she was in love. She has all the symptoms.
Are you the cause of all this, Rogue?
Well, I hope so, but I doubt it. It's an interesting thought.
Where is Pat?
She went out for a walk. Down around the lake, I suppose.
Oh, well, perhaps we're keeping you, Mr. Rogue. The moon's shining, you know. Very romantic out by the lake.
Oh, I think if she'd wanted me to go with her, she would have asked me.
You don't know women, Mr. Rogue. They're very subtle.
It's really a lovely night.
Come on, Diane. Let's take a walk and show Mr. Rogue around the place a little bit, huh?
No, you and Mr. Rogue go ahead, John. I'm going to stay in tonight. I've had the sniffles all day. I don't think I should be out in the night air.
You'd better slip a coat on over your sweater if you go out, Mr. Rogue. Gets pretty chilly up here nights.
Well, how about it, Rogue? Shall we take a look around?
Well, yes. Certainly, I'd like to take a look around this place. Be sure I'm not putting you out.
Oh, not at all. I usually take a stroll before turning in. Come on.
Okay, if you ladies will excuse us.
Of course.
I'll see you at breakfast, Mr. Rogue. I'll probably retire before you return. It's so nice having you here.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
We live very quietly here on the lake road. I'm afraid you might find it a little dull.
Oh, I can use a little quiet.
Have you known Pat long?
Well, quite a while. She's a grand girl, isn't she?
No, one of the best. Strange kid, though.
I think she's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. She has something on her mind lately, though. Doesn't seem to be quite her old carefree self.
You've noticed it, too, huh? Well, she was very close to her father, you know. Hasn't been too sharp since his death. I'm kind of worried about her.
You think that's what she's brooding about? Her father's death?
I can't figure her lately. She's changed completely. Yeah, look at her down there by the side of the lake. All alone, as usual.
Suppose she would resent it if we joined her?
Well, we can try and see. Hey, Pat, you receiving callers this evening?
I'm waiting for them. Come on over.
Well, you look mighty beautiful sitting out there in the moonlight.
That remark has my enthusiastic approval. Aren't you cold out here with no wrap, Patty?
No, it's nice out here. I like the breeze. Have a seat on the sand, Mr. Rogue.
Well, thanks. Oh, brother, this is the life. Brings out the Davy Crockett in me. Tell me, does the place come equipped with a canoe?
Canoe, speedboat, rowboat, take your choice.
Personally, I prefer the speedboat.
Leaves both hands free.
You and your elephant's memory.
John used to make mad love to me out there on that lake, Mr. Rogue. Before he was married, of course.
Yeah, well, that was puppy love. Pat soon tired of me.
What's the program for tomorrow, Pat?
Want to go riding?
Sure.
6 o'clock then at the stables.
6 o'clock in the morning? Will the horses be awake?
Oh, they go to bed early. What are you looking for, Rose?
Oh, my cigarettes. I guess I left them in my coat. Can you spare one?
I didn't bring any with me. Did you, Pat?
You know I don't smoke.
Well, I'm an awful slave. Looks like I'm going to have to go get them. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay, we'll be here.
I didn't know Handsome John well enough to call him a liar, but I did know he had cigarettes in his pocket. It was hard for me to believe that a guy living in all that luxury would begrudge a house guest a cigarette for financial reasons, so I had to assume that he wanted to be alone with Pat. I felt as unnecessary as a laugh at a funeral as I walked back up to the house. The French doors into the living room were open, and I headed for them. I wasn't making any noise, walking in the sand. And I stopped in embarrassment when I heard the conversation which was in progress in the room between Diane and Patricia's mother.
I tell you, I'm not going to put up with this much longer. The way Pat throws herself at John is sickening.
John's old enough to take care of himself, I believe, Diane.
She's doing everything she can to cause trouble between John and me. Everything. She hates me for marrying John.
Yes, I believe she's still in love with John. She always has been. And if she hadn't been away at school when you met John and married him...
Please, don't you dare say that again. Ever.
It's the truth. If it hadn't been for you, John and Pat would be married, as they always planned to be.
If she doesn't leave John alone, something terrible is going to happen to her. I love John. He's mine. You hate me. You hate me for marrying John.
No, I don't hate you, Diane. But I'm her mother. I want my daughter to be happy again. And I'll do anything to bring her happiness back to her.
You can't take John away from me. I'm going to have a talk with him now. We're leaving here in the morning.
When Diane left that room, you could feel the hate radiating from her like heat from a depot stove. She walked directly toward the spot where I was standing, and I ducked back into the shrubbery. I followed her as she headed for the couple on the beach, and I was only a few feet behind her when she stopped. Pat and John were knee-deep in a conversation that was a tone lower than the last note of Asleep in the Deep. Diane listened. So did I.
We have to do something about this, John. We can't go on this way. If you don't tell her you want a divorce,
I don't want a divorce, Pat. Now, that's final. I'm not going to let the fact that you fancy yourself in love with me ruin my whole life.
Think it over tonight, darling. Meet me on the island at 6 tomorrow morning. You'd better go in.
All right. I'll meet you in the morning, Pat, but you...
Go in, John. I love you.
This group of lovely people was as full of potential drama as a little theater on opening night. I followed Diane back into the house, walked noisily in the front door, and said goodnight. I thought I heard somebody enter and leave my room while I was under the shower, but there was nothing much I could do about it. The room was empty when I re-entered it, and I helped myself to a drink of water from the thermos on the night table. The water tasted funny. As I hit the pillow, I knew what it was. I went out like a match in a bucket of water. And when I opened my eyes, I was on Cloud 8. Igor was looking me over, and that little dame was there.
He's opening his eyes, Igor.
Hey, Chiefy, what happened? No bump on your head.
Oh, never mind. What's that girl doing here?
Tell him, Igor. Ask him now.
If you're going to ask me for permission to get married, the answer is no.
Yeah, but Chiefy, don't you think it's about time you and I settle down? Don't you get tired of getting hit on the head?
Look, Igor. You've got all you can do to take care of your job as my alter ego, without taking on any more responsibilities.
But Mr. Rogue, I won't be any trouble. I can...
Honey, now look, Rogie. I ask you man to man.
Man to man? Anything you ask me is spook to man, Igor. You're nothing but a figment of my imagination.
What does that mean, Igor?
Oh, he's a little off his trolley right now. Now look, Chiefy. This is no time to be making a decision which will affect the entire lives of 3 people. You're not clear in the head.
Did it ever occur to you that if I was clear in my head, I wouldn't be here on Cloud 8, talking to you and that Lilliputian Lana Turner? This Cloud 8 is strictly non-coeducational. Now you throw her out of here.
Push him over the side, Igor. Come on, I'll help you.
Oh, no, I have to rest a while. Go away.
Come on, Igor. Help me. He's mean.
All right. Over you go, Chiefy.
No. Cut it out. Ooh, I'll strangle you with your own beard, Igor. Stop pushing.
He's a bad man, Igor.
Yes, he is. So long, Rogie.
When I woke up, the sun was high in the heavens. My head felt like a busy blacksmith's anvil, and my tongue was made of mink. I leaped out of bed like a startled fawn, and I sat back down fast. I dressed without lowering my head and made a belated appearance at the breakfast table. Pat and her mother were having breakfast. John came in a few minutes after me. He didn't look well either.
Good morning, John. Where's Diane?
I don't know. We had a bit of a disagreement last night. She slept in the guest room, and I just looked in. She wasn't there.
She probably went for a morning dip.
Oh. Have you been in yet this morning, Pat?
Not me. I slept. I couldn't wake up this morning.
Whatever happened to our horseback ride, Pat?
Oh, did you get up for it?
Oh, me? Oh, no. No, I slept right straight through. As a matter of fact, I never slept so well in my life.
Yeah, that goes for me, too. And I feel terrible this morning.
Well, so do I. I feel dopey.
How about a canoe ride after breakfast, Pat? It'll do us both good.
Maybe that's what I need.
Do I look as stupid as I feel?
I don't know what you mean. You look kind of sleepy. You look like I feel.
Somebody doped me last night, Pat.
They did. Are you sure?
Honey, I know when I've been slipped a tricky Mickey. Last night was one of those times. Who would have wanted me out of the way last night?
I don't know. I'm sure somebody doped me last night, too, Richard. It's almost as if some crazy person were hiding there. Maybe we should call the police.
Look, chicken, that stepsister of yours is kind of burned with you.
Diane?
Now, don't look so surprised. You know it. I happened to overhear a little conversation between Diane and your mother last night. Diane lifted your boyfriend, didn't she?
Yes.
You were asking for trouble, Pat. Fighting back like that. I really... Hey.
What's the matter?
What's that over there?
Oh, Richard.
Don't look.
It's Diane, isn't it?
Yes.
That's my white bathing suit. She's wearing my bathing suit.
She's dead, Pat. Somebody shot her.
Oh, no. Richard, whoever shot her thought they were shooting me.
We'll return to our story in just a moment. First, a word to the ladies. You know how often your hair is caught in the spotlight of the summer sun. Be sure your hair meets the test. By shampooing regularly with Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo, you can be sure the sun will not reveal your hair as dry or harsh-looking. That's because Fitch's saponified shampoo is made from mild coconut and pure vegetable oils. It makes your hair ever so soft and manageable, even right after you shampoo it. And ladies, here's a special feature you'll appreciate. Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo contains its own special patented rinsing agent. No special after rinse is required, for the rinsing agent works right with the plain rinse water to get your hair sparkling clean. Fitch's saponified shampoo brings out all the gleaming natural highlights of your hair and leaves it with a satiny texture that's beautiful to look at, easy to arrange. Remember always to ask for Fitch. F-I-T-C-H. Fitch's saponified coconut oil shampoo. Now back to Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogue's Gallery.
Well, Pat Flynn had proved her point. Her half-sister Diane was lying there on the beach, dead. Shot while swimming in Lake Tecumseh, wearing Pat's white satin swimsuit. I stood over Diane's body while Pat ran screaming hysterically up to the house to get John. They were back in a few minutes, and the three of us stood looking down at the dead girl.
Oh, darling.
Here, John, take it easy, old man.
Let go of me, Rogue. Let go of me.
I know how you feel, John.
Oh, you know how I feel. Have you ever loved anybody so much you couldn't get your breath? And then had them murdered? You know how I feel. How could you know?
John, please.
Get away from me, Pat. Do you hear? This is all your fault. If you hadn't been such a stupid little fool, she wouldn't be dead.
Now, take it easy, John. You don't know what you're saying.
How could you blame me, John? Whoever killed her thought they were shooting me.
I wish they had. You were the cause of all the trouble. You've hated her ever since we were married. You think she stole me from you? How could you think that? You were never anything to me.
Now, look. We'd better get up to the house. The police have to be called. This is murder, you know.
You take care of that, will you, Rogue?
Of course. You better come with me, John.
No. I'll stay here with Diane. But take Pat with you. Don't leave her out here with me. With us.
I'll go, John. I wish you wouldn't hate me. John.
Get back to the house.
Come on, Pat.
And when the police get here, Rogue, I have something to tell them. Bring them right out here to me.
All right, John. Oh, this is a horrible thing, Pat. Tell me, how did your mother react to the news of her stepdaughter's murder?
She didn't say anything. She just said, "Oh, Richard, you don't think Mother..."
I don't know. It looks like everybody in the house was doped last night, but your mother.
Oh, it couldn't have been Mother. She wouldn't want to hurt me.
You're overlooking the fact that whoever shot Diane might have known just who was wearing that white bathing suit, aren't you?
Oh, no. It couldn't have been Mother. It was someone trying to kill me.
That's just a theory. Go call the police. Tell them to come up here. I'm going to have a talk with your mother. As soon as Pat was out of the way, I ran up the stairs to my room. I took the stopper out of the thermos and sniffed the water in it. There had been chloral in that water. I knew the pungent smell of it. I visited Pat's bedroom and John's and sampled the odor of the water at their bedsides. It was a very interesting experiment. I headed for the bedroom occupied by Pat's mother and hesitated outside the door. There was the odor of burning cloth. I opened the door and walked in. She was on her knees in front of the fireplace, trying to burn a scanty red swimsuit, a damp one.
What do you mean, coming into my bedroom, Mr. Rogue?
Your stepdaughter Diane has been murdered, and I'm investigating the circumstances. Give me that bathing suit. Give it here.
No, I won't.
I'm sorry. I'll have to take it then. You know, destroying evidence is bad business. Give it here.
I killed her. I killed Diane, Mr. Rogue.
You did? Why?
She was ruining my daughter's life. I killed her this morning.
Where does the bathing suit enter into it? Why were you trying to destroy it?
I didn't want the police to know that I'd been in the lake this morning.
Oh, I see. Well?
The police are... Mother, what are you doing with that swimsuit? Pat,
Whose is it?
It was Diane's.
You might as well face it, Pat. Your mother killed Diane. She just confessed to me. He was burning that suit to keep the police from finding out that she'd been in swimming this morning.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Look at that suit. Look at the size of it. Mother could no more get into that than
Pat! No. No, she couldn't, could she? But you could, Pat. And if I'm
I did it. I killed her. Pat, don't say anything.
The water on my nightstand was drugged last night, Pat. Chloral. So was John's. But yours wasn't. And you shot Diane, didn't you?
No. Pat, don't answer him. I shot her. I hated her. She was
no good, Mother. I did it. I killed her. I saw her sneaking around listening to what John and I were saying last night. Spying on us. I gave her something to listen to. I made a date to meet John on the island at 6 o'clock this morning. I knew what she'd do. I knew.
Oh, Pat. Pat, how could you do it?
I'm glad I did it. If I can't have John, I'd just as soon be dead. I'm only sorry I wasn't a little more clever.
Pat, dear, we'll get the best attorney.
No, not for me. Oh, bless your heart. That was a wonderful try you made for me.
Mommy, I love you.
The police arrived a few minutes later, and Pat told them everything. Her diary was admitted as evidence at her trial. Every day since the marriage of John and Diane, Pat had planned Diane's death. The phony attempts on her life that she told me about were part of the build-up. There could be no doubt about the fact that Pat's mind had given away under the deadly poison of jealousy and hate. She was found not guilty by reason of insanity and was committed to an institution. All on account of jealousy. Oh, well, jealousy is a very strange thing. You drive yourself daffy trying to prove something that you hope isn't true. Because if it is, you're going to drive yourself crazy trying to convince yourself that it wasn't important anyway. You know what I mean. This is Dick Powell again, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed our story tonight. Ray Buffum wrote it. Leith Stevens composed and conducted the music, and Dee Engelbach produced and directed. Next week, we have a story for you about a red-headed stranger, a young wife, and something different. A murder. Be with us then, will you? Thanks for listening, and now here's Jim Doyle.
Be sure to tune in again next week, same time, same station, when you will again hear Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogue's Gallery.
Laugh a while, let a song be your style. Use Fitch shampoo. Don't despair, use your head, save your hair. Use Fitch shampoo.
After and between Fitch shampoos, you can keep your hair shining and manageable by using a few drops of Fitch's Ideal Hair Tonic every day. Fitch's Ideal Hair Tonic is not sticky or greasy, yet it gives your hair that well-groomed look.
Welcome back. Well, a very good morality play the way it worked out. And this is one of those episodes where Gerald Moore is a guest star, but did not actually commit the murder, which is kind of different for Rogue's Gallery. I've kind of developed the habit of when there's a murder on an episode of Rogue's Gallery and Gerald Moore is on, and guessing that Gerald Moore's character is the one who did it, and usually I end up being right like 3 out of 4 times. We do have a listener comment from Melissa who says, I love your show and have fallen in love with Rogue's Gallery. Is the voice of Igor actually William Tracy, who plays Peppy in The Shop Around the Corner with Jimmy Stewart and Margaret Sullivan? It sure does sound like him. Well, thanks so much, Melissa. It is actually not him. Rather, it is Peter Leeds, a well-known, sort of, I guess, radio and television character actor. And I'm thinking for one of our app extras coming up, we might play a Peter Leeds in another role. He didn't have a whole lot of starring roles, though. We'll see what we can put together. All right, well, thanks so much for your comments and questions. We will be back tomorrow with Let George Do It, and next week, another episode of Rogues Gallery. Well, before we get started, I just want to say thank you to everyone who supported our recent listener support campaign. And with that, let's go ahead and take a listen to today's episode of Let George Do It, Sudden Storm.
Personal notice changes my stock and trade. If the job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details. Standard Oil Company of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invite you to Let George Do It. Sudden Storm, another adventure of George Valentine.
Dear Mr. Valentine, I'm writing from the most desolate place in the world. South end of Adobe Valley, right next to the bare, dead hills, where not even a coyote could be happy unless he found a rock high enough to jump off of. Well, Mr. Valentine, I've found my high place. And if I'm a coyote, it's only from running so fast and so long and hiding so much and not even remembering some of it. But you see, right now, I'm myself, I guess you'd call it. So here goes. You read in the newspapers the past year about the punishments of the sinful that were known as the quotation mark killings. First there in the city, then several more times in towns up the valley, and all by the same man, only he was never caught. Mr. Valentine, I believe in justice, and what scares me more than anything is the idea that some hick cop might get it all wrong, might make an innocent person suffer for those killings, which I did. Yes, me. Every one of them.
What?
That's what he writes, George. Look, it's in longhand.
Go on.
Killings which I did, every one of them.
Let me see the postmark.
It's Adobe Valley.
Yesterday.
I guess nobody has ever understood those killings. The women who died and the notes I left.
Hey, give me the phone. And go on. Keep reading.
All right, George. So I've written everything down so you can understand and tell the world how I've been punishing sin. Only sometimes, like right now, when the storm is beating down outside, when I'm more like myself, I know that the only way for me to be happy is to just jump right out into space so I won't ever have to explain anything, even to myself. That's what I'm going to do, Mr. Valentine. By the time you get this letter, by the time you follow my directions and get here, I myself will be punished. I'll be dead.
Hello. Wake up, will you? Police headquarters. Well, 22 miles beyond the timbered place. I guess this is it, Brooksy.
All those trees down. Oh, George, it must have been a terrible storm.
Yeah, I'll say. Okay, look out for the mud here, Angel.
I see it, George. I don't see Lieutenant Riley's car yet, do you? Oh, look.
Huh? Oh, hey, friend. This place called the Adobe Valley Inn?
This is the Waldorf Astoria.
Oh, I see. Just took down the sign, huh?
Spoiled the view. Rattlesnakes didn't like it.
Do you own it?
Lady, what you see before you is its only guest. Only one they've had in 5 years. Just me now and then.
Uh-huh. Even more deserted than it looks. Sure run down, isn't it?
You here to meet that cop from the city, Riley? His car's around in back, out by one of them cabins in the orange tree.
Thanks. Come on, Brooksy.
Dead, dried out orange trees.
That's what brought the suckers here 50 years ago, to smell one orange and buy a real estate. Then drainage took the water away from this country.
What keeps you around here?
Oh, mining engineering's my line, or maybe prospecting to you. I'm a latter-day sucker, that's all. Can't stay away from it.
How are prospects?
Well, there's something around here beside rocks for cattle to starve on. So I keep coming back finding rocks. Now, look, what's all the excitement? You and the lieutenant and that shack. Nobody lives around this joint but an old lady and a runny-nosed flunky. So, come on, what's happening? What's all
We'll tell you later, friend, when we know ourselves.
Yeah, this is the cabin he wrote about in his directions to you, Valentine. And he was in here all right. Scratched paper in the wastebasket. Yeah, that's where he wrote that letter to you.
Riley, what did the laboratory say about that letter?
Oh, it's genuine, all right. It's from the same guy.
The quotation mark killer?
Yeah, Miss Brooks, him. The worst unsolved maniac case in years. Somebody we know nothing and everything about.
What do you mean?
Well, we know his handwriting from the notes he left on his victims. And his fingerprints, we've had them. They're on your letter, incidentally. And we know he always killed the same way, 2 curving slashes from a knife.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the newspapers gave him the name the quotation mark killer.
Yeah, but you don't know his real name or what he looked like.
Well, our police psychiatrists and artists have worked on that. They figured he was small, was slender, and some kind of a facial disfigurement.
And in the letter he claims to have been hiding out right here.
Mm-hmm. Empty bean cans, razor blades, candles. Must have been here a couple of months.
Who's the buck-toothed blonde?
Huh? Oh, that newspaper clipping? I don't know. Nightclub singer or something. I haven't got all the victims straight. The men who are assigned to the case will be out here as fast as they can.
All the victims?
Yeah, here, look, clippings of all of them. And pictures, too. His own private little gallery.
Yeah. Oh, pretty good-looking women. I remember. He hated sin.
Yeah, he was a nut. I guess he had the idea that...
Jezebels. Wasn't that what he thought?
Sure. Any woman he thought might be one, he'd just decide they should be punished by him. On the periphery of women.
Huh?
Yeah, he wanted you to find all this, Valentine, so you'd understand him. That's what he's been doing here, writing this. Here, see?
It's practically a book. Here, let me look.
Tell about his murders?
Mm-hmm. Tells about him. The split-off crazy part of him wrote it.
Nobody had ever punished enough the women of the race who... Oh, it might almost be sad if it wasn't so hard.
Skip it, Brooksy. Bring that thing along. His letter was in a different frame of mind, Check. For once, he was sane enough to know he had to kill himself. Okay, now where'd he do it? How'd he do it? Where's the body now?
No, sir. Ain't been nobody out in the shack?
Look, yes, there has been. We know there
I've had the inn here ever since my husband died. 23 years ago. Don't even take in guests anymore. It's too much trouble. Mr. Rugger, he's a prospector. He's been here once in a while, off and on.
Well, we've met him. Who else was seen around here?
Look, sir, she don't know. She hasn't even left this room in 10 years.
You speak when you're spoken to, young man.
Sure, boss.
Kid, are you the hired help?
Yes, sir. My name's Ralph. And I know I could help you. Gosh, it's exciting. A thing like this happening right around here.
Well, have you seen him? The man hiding in the shack?
Well, you understand, I don't get out there, so...
Have you seen him?
Well, no, sir. Not anybody.
For the love of...
Ask me the same question, I'll give you the same answer.
Oh, hello there, Mr. Rugger. Haven't seen an extra man around, huh?
No.
Gee, I'd be glad to help you. Look, I'd be glad
I
to.
remember 10 years ago, a hobo lived in the barn for almost a month before anybody
So
noticed.
none of you have seen anybody, is that right?
Usually it's hard to hide out in a place so isolated because people notice anything.
You're just asking the wrong people, that's all. The old and the lazy. Try those Stokeses or Sykeses or whatever it is.
Stiles, that's it.
Who?
Rancher and his wife live down the edge of the canyon.
Have they mentioned anything?
Search me, I don't know them. Got a dog will tear your leg off. Good place to stay away from.
But they might have seen something.
Huh?
Yes, they might have. That's all there is around here to see anything. Just them and us.
Looks like nobody's home.
Yeah. Place seems deserted. Not much of a ranch house.
Not much of a ranch in this dying country.
If that murderer could hide from those people at the end, do you really think anybody else would have seen him?
We should have. No trees or undergrowth around here, unless he just stayed holed up all the time.
Yeah, but where is he now? His body. He sounded like he wanted to kill himself with a big
George,
bird.
listen.
What is it? Hey, look out.
The dog.
Get away from him, Matt. Get away! Hey, Jim, what are you talking about?
There's a man over there.
Hey, you. Hey, get away. Slow down.
Get out of here. Who are you? What do you want?
Take it easy. Stop, will you? Now get that dog out of here.
Get down. Get down.
That's better.
I got him, mister. I got him. Don't you dare come any closer to me. I'll turn him loose.
Is your name Stiles?
Who are you? Where'd you come from?
I know where you came from, Buster, out of that house there. Now calm down, will you, and tie up that dog.
What's the matter, Mr. Stiles? Don't you like strangers?
George, he's terrified.
Where the law, Mr. Stiles? What's in your house anyway?
What? It's my wife. My wife. She's in the house. And she's dead.
It's the blonde.
Yeah. Bucktooth blonde. Same one in the photo, that folded up newspaper clipping back in the shack.
She's been murdered, hasn't she? I just come in. I just found her.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Riley?
I guess she's been dead for maybe a couple of days. But it's the same 2 knife slashes, all right?
So it's him again. Our boy did it.
Yeah, sure. Just like the others, everything.
But you say you haven't seen any strangers around, Mr. Stiles, huh?
No. But I never go over by the inn, except on my trips into town.
How often's that?
Pretty often. I'm just hanging on to my land here by my bare teeth. I get away, work as a carpenter sometimes to fill out the budget.
That where you been the past few days?
I was fixing fences at bigger ranches 20 miles on beyond. I was making a circle, fixing fences.
Mm-hmm. Look, in that photo, your wife, she was a singer?
No, just a few years ago at a club down in Valley Junction for fun, that's all.
Oh.
It was pretty lonely up here for her, I guess.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I never thought there was any danger leaving her alone. I always let the dog stay with her.
Hold it a second. Valentine, did this murder happen before or after that letter to you?
Just what I was wondering, Riley. Did you find any mention of it in that true confession he wrote, Brooksy?
No, not yet, George. He's not specific about anybody.
Busy talking about himself, huh? Well, it might have been before, Riley. I mean, a man like that might have a pretty strong kickback after committing one of his crimes. Maybe it was this instead of the storm that snapped him into a little normalcy, made him realize he had to kill himself.
Here, that's what you hope.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a worse storm. In the letter, he talked about jumping right out into space.
Someplace in life there is a clean, high place.
What's that?
Hey, sure. Sure, what he wrote about the coyote and the rock. How about it, Stiles? Is there a high rock around here any place?
What?
A rock?
No, not that I know of. It's rough, but just rolling hill.
But the trestle, Mr. Stiles, the trestle.
Sure, that's right. Trestle's the only high place. Runs across the big wash. Canyon, they call it.
Huh? What are you talking about?
Listen to this. I have found such a place, and it's an old trestle, nearly 200 feet high, and there I intend to make my final punishment. There I will kill myself.
Come on.
Any luck on your side?
Not down here, Riley.
Certainly wouldn't have landed this far out.
Yeah. And none of these mud puddles are deep enough to cover a man. Oh, brother, what a country.
Yeah, I'll say. And what a case, Riley. We tear out here to locate a madman who plans to kill himself 2 days ago.
But instead we find one of the people he's killed, which might have been followed up by his own suicide.
Then where is he?
Looks more like he changed his mind.
Well, at least let's say he's not here, no body.
You mean he's still loose, Valentine? You mean the storm has barely begun, don't you? You mean who else is going to be killed?
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. No other part of the country offers more scenic variety for motorists than our western states. At the same time, no other driving is tougher on car engines. That's why motorists everywhere in the West will tell you more people prefer RPM motor oil than any other brand. And there's sound reason for RPM being first choice where driving's toughest. It's scientifically compounded to stay on every inch of metal at all times, whether your car is pulling over a long, steep grade or rolling through a hot desert valley. Ordinary oils in today's high-powered engines leave upper cylinder walls bare and exposed to wear, but not RPM. And that's just one of the advantages that make it the best engine insurance you can buy. Tomorrow, start using it in your car. RPM motor oil, first choice where driving's toughest. Ask for it at independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations where they say and mean we take better care of your car. Now, back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. You receive a letter from a man whom the police have frantically sought for more than a year, a man whose insane killings have terrified not only the city, but the scattered towns of Adobe Valley as well. The murderer tells you he's going to commit suicide by leaping from a high, abandoned railroad trestle, apparently because he's just committed his final murder, that of Mrs. Stiles, the lonely wife of a rancher. But then you find that the man didn't jump. For now you have searched at the place he described and you haven't found his body. Yes, it looks as though the killer changed his mind, as though the posse which Lieutenant Riley has hurriedly summoned will be needed after all, with the killer still loose somewhere in the night around you.
Did you get in touch with those ranchers farther up, Riley?
Yeah, the sheriff's men have. Well, this is a little harder country to get out of than I thought.
How so?
Well, that storm. Most of the big places had men out looking for lost calves. And these hills are pretty bare. A man on foot can be seen for miles.
Nobody reported seeing anybody, huh?
What about the road out that way?
No car. Besides, the roads were blocked off for a couple of days. Those trees in the wind, remember?
Hey, Mr. Valentine!
Wait a minute, hold it. Yeah?
Mr. Valentine, come here!
Just a second. Yeah, where are you?
Over here! It's a dog, Mr. Valentine.
Oh, hello there, Ruger. Oh, come on now. Come on. Get away. Get down.
The dog brought in something.
Come here, Mac. Get away from there. Come
What do
here.
you mean he brought something?
Here, look here.
It's a bandana.
No, that's right. Man's handkerchief. Pretty fancy one. Not anymore, but
Soaked up with mud and burrs. So was the dog. Not your bandana, huh?
No, and I'm pretty sure the kid doesn't own anything like that.
Uh-huh. Well, now, the ground's pretty dry up around the Stiles place, isn't it? Sure. Here's one of the dog's footprints. The dog came from the opposite direction.
Maybe it doesn't mean anything, but if you haven't found any traces of what became of this killer around the trestle up there...
Sure. You never know, do you? Just a bandana got lost in a storm. Might mean nothing or everything. We'll see in time.
Mike here doesn't like the coyotes, mister.
All right, Stiles. Just keep him on the trail.
He's not any bird dog, you know. He's no bloodhound.
Take it easy, Stiles. Just do the best you can with him. You'd like to find what we're looking for just as much as we do, isn't that right?
Not with you.
What do you mean? What do you mean, not with us, Stiles?
I mean, I'll kill him, that's what. I guess he wasn't so happy up here
Me having to be gone so much in the town. But she always said she could stand it.
Yeah, sure, I see.
A guy like that's crazy. He had a picture of her, somebody said.
That's right. In the shack, along with pictures of the others he killed. Carried them in his wallet all the time, I guess.
We find him. I'll kill him.
No, you won't. Come on now. Keep your mind on what you're doing. Push that dog, will you?
George, we're almost a mile from the trestle. More than that from the ranch and the inn.
There should be at least some prints if the guy came down this way.
I know it.
Well, then, how do you explain...
I don't. What's the matter, Stiles? Lose the scent?
What scent? I'm just nosing around having fun.
Well, keep after him.
Oh, George, listen, it's a wild goose chase.
Look, the murderer was here, though. The evidence in the shack.
Yes, but who was there? The crazy, split-off part of the man who did terrible things and who wrote about them, that's all.
Don't you wonder why it's so hard to get any trace of a killer nobody's ever really seen? Who disappears so easily?
It could have been anybody in that shack, George. Any other person. Remember in the letter he said, when I'm myself?
Fingerprints in the shack were the same as the other killings.
That's what I mean. Somebody who went to the shack and wouldn't be noticed. Somebody who really lives up in this part of the country. Why, it could be any one of the men up here. They all have gone down to the other towns quite often.
And here we are in an empty, muddy wash in the middle of the night.
Okay, stop it.
He could be ahead of us or behind us, and we wouldn't know.
Look there.
Yes, Stiles?
Shut up, Mike. Stop that. Behind the rock, Valentine, see?
It's just a shadow.
Waiting for us, hiding.
George, it's him.
Now, wait a minute. Give me that flashlight.
Don't shine that. You'll see where it...
I'm just making sure, that's all. I'm looking for footprints. Still couldn't see any, but you... Look.
What?
In this mud leading over to him, not a single one.
What? But I can see...
Riley, this is a wash under the railway trestle. And 2 days ago, there was a big sudden storm in this beautiful adobe country. Well, didn't you ever hear of a flash flood?
Flash flood? Now, what...
Come on. There's no danger. The guy left no footprints because he was washed down here. He's already dead.
Well, it's him, Valentine. The original, one and only quotation mark killer.
His fingerprints check?
Yeah. The sheriff's men there just compared them.
The police artist and the psychiatrist guessed pretty well, huh, Riley? Small, slender, some kind of a facial disfigurement. He's been dead since the night of the sudden storm.
Yeah. Splinters, a little tar in his jacket. He jumped from the trestle, all right, just the way he said he would. He killed himself after committing that last crime of his, Mrs. Stiles. And if it hadn't been for high water carrying him down here...
We might not have suspected so many people. That's what he wanted to prevent, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Wanted me to see that nobody suffered for crimes that they hadn't committed.
All right.
Well, you've got your man. You've got your evidence. Oh, come here a minute, will you, Mr. Ruby?
Yeah, sure. Never dull at the Waldorf Towers, is it?
Say, you were around the night of the storm. You must have known how the water flooded down this canyon like water out of a bucket.
Well, you ever seen up around Bakersfield?
No, Stiles over there. He's been pretty upset. Or the idea might have occurred to him. But you knew exactly why we were looking around the trestle. Why didn't you suggest that the body might have been carried down here?
Well, in all the excitement...
Well, never mind. Say, you got $1 in your wallet?
Huh?
Come on, let me see your wallet. I really want to see if a certain folded-up newspaper picture would fit into it. Kind of a photo a guy might carry around of a girl.
What are you talking about?
Oh, I'm just settling a couple of things. Why, I don't mean about who the crazy quotation mark killer was. That's all settled.
Well,
but about a man suffering for a crime he hasn't committed. Well, hurry it up, will you? You can let me test this picture of Mrs. Stiles for size in your wallet?
Let go of me.
Hello, Stiles. I want you to do something. This is Ruger, a prospector who just can't stay away from this part of the country.
Sure, I've seen him once or twice passing the inn.
Yeah, that's right. But he says he never comes around your place. Didn't even know you and your wife.
But Stiles just told
Shut up, will you?
you?
Now, Stiles, I want you to hold his arm so I can walk away.
What?
Yeah. Something happened earlier tonight that I want to check on. I want to see if my ears were right the first time, back by the trestle when Ruger called my attention to the bandana. I want to see what that dog of yours that's snarling at me right now does when only Ruger's around like he was then.
Poor Mr. Valentine only...
That dog of yours who's death on strangers, Stiles, and the man who's never gone near your ranch house, never gone near your wife, I suppose, in all the times that you were away. Well, listen. Look at the dog. Still watching me. But I'll bet you could even pat him, couldn't you, Ruger? Your old friend.
Why, you go...
George, did he confess?
By the time we tore Stiles off of him, Ruger was only too glad.
It made sense, Angel. You see, I'd noticed the dog went for every single other person tonight. And from what we'd heard of Mrs. Stiles, her being the lonely kind of a woman she was, cooped up in that place when her husband was gone, well, along came Ruger, and I suppose...
It must have been going on for years.
Yeah, she wouldn't leave her husband, and Ruger couldn't stand it.
Took turns loving her and hating her, because he couldn't tear himself away from her, I suppose.
But George, the other killer, it's so accidental that he would have come along and be blamed.
Well, now, what's accidental about it? That's just the point, Brooksy. You see, the killer was hiding in that shack. Well, Ruger spotted him, that's all. Got in there and read all that stuff. The big confession.
Mm-hmm.
It was all there for him. Maybe he even saw the scratch notes of the letter to me.
Yeah. That gave him the idea to kill Mrs. Stiles.
Yeah, it laid it right out for him. All he had to do was wait until the crazy guy jumped off the trestle, then go up to the ranch house and make the death of Mrs. Stiles fit in with the pattern everybody knew about.
That's it, Riley. With the bad weather and the day's wait for me to get the letter, Ruger knew there'd be plenty of delay, Brooksy. Knew even a doctor'd never be able to figure out who died first, the lunatic killer or the woman whose picture Ruger just took out of his wallet and slipped in with the killer's things.
Yeah. Quick, sudden storm for everybody, wasn't it?
But it's over now, Brooksy. It's all over.
One thing you don't want during your vacation motoring trip is your car's engine handicapped by engine sticking gum. The impurities that cause this power-robbing gum exist in most raw gasolines. The only way to get them out is to refine them out. And Chevron Supreme is the gasoline that's super refined to remove gum. Try Chevron Supreme and notice your car's improved response. Faster start, smoother pickup in traffic, and ping-free power on hills. See if it doesn't give you that new car feeling. Another thing this premium quality gasoline gives you is full mileage in the kind of everyday driving you do. You don't have to wait for your vacation to enjoy that new car feeling. Just ask for Chevron Supreme tomorrow. Ask at standard stations and independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard Oil Company of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Virginia Gregg as Brooksy. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Wally Mayer is Lieutenant Riley. Herb Butterfield was heard as Stiles, Ted DeCorsia as Ruger, Noreen Gamil as the old lady, Irvin Lee as Ralph, Fred Howard as the murderer, and the dog was played by Earl Keane. Music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, I totally misID'd one of the voices. I really thought that the voice of the prospector was Jack Kirkwood in a rare dramatic role, so I got that wrong. I did like the part where it listed the person who did the voice of the dog. And really, in the golden age of radio, that was how you got the dog noises. You'd have somebody voicing the dog. I don't know if I've heard them credited before. They actually had a Lassie radio series done pretty much that way. Well, that'll do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with Sherlock Holmes. A big thank you to everyone who participated in our listener support campaign that's been concluded last week. I do want to go ahead and let you know about the new Sherlock Holmes series we're getting into. This series marked a complete change in most of the areas of production. The show changed networks, going from ABC back to Mutual, and was being will now be broadcast from New York. WOR, the flagship of the Mutual Radio Network, from which we'll hear some other shows next season, including Leonidas Witherall. And of course, there was a change of sponsors, with Kreml Hair Tonic gone and replaced by Clipper Craft Clothes, a sort of discount men's clothing store. And of course, the two principals in the cast changed. John Stanley took over the role of Sherlock Holmes, and Alfred Shirley playing Dr. Watson. I'll see what I can find on Alfred Shirley next week. John Stanley, we know very little about, not even birth and death information. All that the folks at OTR Generation .blogspot.com were able to find on Mr. Stanley was an article that does reveal an interesting fact that when Stanley was in his early childhood, he was actually the son of two Americans living in England, and was born and spent much of his early childhood in London, and in particular about half a mile away from 221B Baker Street. And then he actually came to the United States when he was 21 and got a job at WJR radio station in Providence, Rhode Island, singing. And he'd also apparently done some Shakespearean acting as well. But again, scant information available on John Stanley. However, in terms of Sherlock Holmes series with episodes and adaptations, there are more of John Stanley than any other. We'll be able to bring you either 77 or 78 of the episodes in this particular series. Well, introductions out of the way, let's go ahead and we will take a listen to today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, The Case of the Dog Who Changed His Mind.
Makers of Clippercraft Clothes for Men and 924 leading retail stores from coast to coast present the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Here we are once again on the threshold of a well-remembered room. Lamplight streams across the handsome bindings of a cherished and well-read library. The fragrance of a bowl of ruddy apples fills the air. In a comfortable, worn leather armchair sits our old friend and favorite raconteur, the genial Dr. Watson.
Come in, Mr. Harris. Come in and welcome. Welcome to you and all our host of radio friends.
You look as if your summer vacation had been a huge success, Doctor.
Oh, it was indeed. I've taken off a bit of weight, don't you think?
Absolutely. How did you do it?
Oh, helping Holmes look after his blasted bees. Mary and I were down in Sussex for a month this summer, you know.
I had no idea beekeeping was so strenuous, Doctor.
Well, it wasn't that so much as the fact that I was jolly well stung on the lip by a rampant queen. In consequence, I was obliged to partake of a liquid diet for one entire week. But that's enough about me. Suppose we get on to the person I'm sure our listeners are most anxious to hear about. The world's greatest consulting detective by his own admission, Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
And which of his adventures are we to have this evening, Doctor?
Well, suppose I relate the case of the dog who changed his mind. It concerns a fabulous bottle of ancestral brandy and an old woman whose murder benefited no one but a famous society of wine tasters.
Sounds promising.
But before we become further involved, don't you think this is a good time to mention the gentleman whose courtesy, not to say checkbooks, have made this winter series of broadcasts possible?
A very sound idea, Dr. Watson. For our listeners should know all there is to know about Clippercraft clothes. As millions of men have discovered, they're just about the most amazing clothes values you've ever seen. And as you well know, there's a why and a wherefore for everything. In this case, it's the famous Clippercraft plan. By concentrating the buying power of 924 leading stores from coast to coast, you get all the advantages of steady year-round operation, all the savings in manufacturing and distribution costs. It gives you the benefits of group buying, plus the friendly personal attention you expect at the leading store in your community, at the store you can trust. And it doesn't take a Sherlock Holmes to discover that Clippercraft values are second to none. You can buy expensive-looking Clippercraft suits at only $35 and $40, with a few deluxe models at $43.75. You can buy Clippercraft topcoats and overcoats at only $30 to $40, and sport jackets at only $24. Believe me, this is your clue to clothes satisfaction this fall. Simply compare Clippercraft with clothes selling for many dollars more. Now, Dr. Watson, what about the case of the dog who changed his mind?
Righto. Yes, now let me see. It was in the good old Baker Street days. A rather gloomy day in late October, to be exact. We had breakfasted late in front of a sea-coal fire. With my body in one easy chair and my legs upon another, I sat listening with growing irritation to Holmes as he practiced interminable scales, roulades, glissandos, and what have you on his violin. At last, a particularly screeching dissonance was more than my frazzled nerves could bear. Holmes, must you do that?
Calm yourself, my dear Watson. I was not responsible for that last bit of cacophony. It was caused by the scraping of a carriage wheel against our curbstone. I rather think we're about to receive a client, a lady, rather slight and agitated.
Well, how can you possibly tell? You haven't even bothered to look out of the window.
My ears, Watson, are nearly as well trained as my eyes. The infinitesimal creak of the carriage springs as its passenger descended to the pavement indicate a slender person. The tap of French heels indicate a lady. The quickness of her step indicates that she's agitated. Yes, decidedly agitated.
Oh, I must say, Holmes, you have ears like a hawk.
Your metaphor is a trifle mixed, my dear Watson, but I accept your tribute. Come in.
Mr. Holmes? Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
Naturally. This is my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
Oh, thank heavens you're at home. You must come at once, Mr. Holmes. She's been murdered, I know she has, and they'll blame Reggie. Dr. Tillinghurst has sent for Scotland Yard. Oh, Mr. Holmes, can't you do something?
My dear young lady, I can do a great many things, but not until you could give us a coherent account of your difficulty.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I have made a fool of myself. But the whole thing is so impossible. You see, she'd never commit suicide. Even at 89, she enjoyed life tremendously. And no one could have killed her because she was alone with the door bolted from the inside.
Who is this remarkable old lady, and why should anyone want to kill her?
She was Lady Blenkinsop. But who in the world would want to harm her? Oh, I'll admit she was eccentric and difficult at times. You know the French, Mr. Holmes. But it didn't frighten anyone. Not even Bobo.
Bobo?
Oh, Bobo is her pug dog. Terribly spoiled, but devoted and funny, too.
Oh.
It was always with her, sitting on her lap or sleeping at the foot of her bed. Poor little thing. That's where we found him this morning when we broke in the door. Just stood there barking at the noise we made and wagging his tail at Dr. Tillinghurst.
Why did you break in the door?
Because it was still locked when Potters, he's the butler, brought up Lady Blenkinsop's early tea. She always locked herself in at night. Didn't want anyone to catch sight of her without her curls, I suspect.
But this morning was different, I gather.
Oh, yes, Mr. Holmes. I made her tea and a bit of toast at 9:30. You see, I'm her companion, but I do cook her breakfast and fix her a bit of lunch. There's a charwoman who comes in to do the heavy cleaning and cooks dinners. And Potters attends to the rest of the house.
Rather a meagre domestic staff for a person of Lady Blenkinsop's standing, eh, what?
Is she hard up for funds?
Oh, no, I believe she's quite well off. Her own money, too. Of course, the Blenkinsop estates went to Reggie when Lady Blenkinsop's husband died. He inherited the title, too.
Creating a certain amount of friction between the old lady and her nephew, no doubt.
Oh, no, Dr. Watson. They were devoted to each other. Not that they didn't squabble now and then. Like last night, when Reggie stamped out of the house when she took her birthday brandy up to bed with her unopened, without offering him a drink.
Well, surely he could drop round to his club if he wanted a nightcap.
Oh, you don't understand. Lady Blenkinsop's birthday brandy is very special. We've always looked forward to it. But this being the last bottle, I imagine she wanted to save it. Yesterday was her birthday, you see, and I baked her a birthday cake.
What happened last night is not what brought you here.
Oh, no. Last night was fun. Just Reggie and myself and Lady Blenkinsop. And Potters, of course. She always gave him a piece of the cake, too. It was all so gay. This morning was horrible.
Right from the time you woke up?
No. As a matter of fact, Potters was whistling when I gave him her tray to take up. Here's Lady Blenkinsop's tray, Potter.
Oh, morning, Miss Kitty. A bit late this morning, aren't we?
A bit. I overslept, but it's all right, I hope. I imagine Lady Blenkinsop overslept, too, after last night's excitement.
I wouldn't count on it. She's a great one, her ladyship is. Next year she'll be 90. And here she is, as bright and sassy as the day his lordship brought her here, a bride from France. I'll never forget her driving up in the carriage surrounded with all those cases of brandy. Brought them over from France, she had. Said her father had sent them along so she'd have something fit to drink on her birthdays, at least. There were so many bottles I thought she'd never live to drink the last. But there's no more left, Miss Kitty. That one she took upstairs is the end. She always felt when that brandy was gone, she'd be gone, too.
Oh, nonsense, Potter. That's just superstition. Here, you'd better take her tea up before it gets cold, or she'll snatch you bald-headed.
And how could she do that when it's bald I've been 30 years now? Oh, Miss Kitty, there's the front door.
It's all right, Potters. I'll answer it. Oh, Dr. Tillinghurst, good morning.
Good morning, Miss Kitty. Started to rain. I'll just leave my umbrella here in the stand. How's Lady Blenkinsop this morning?
I don't really know. I've just sent her tray up. I think she may have slept later than usual. Yesterday was her birthday, you know.
That's exactly why I dropped by. Thought you might have overdone it a bit. Can't be too careful at her age. Thought I'd like to listen to her heart.
I'll go up and announce you.
Good girl. I don't know what she pays you, but whatever it is, it's not enough.
Oh, I do all right. Besides, I enjoy my work here. She's really lots of fun.
And doesn't give you much time to yourself, I imagine. Hello. What's wrong with Potters? He's still standing outside the door.
What's the matter, Potters?
I've knocked and I've knocked, but she doesn't say come in.
Well, go in anyway.
I can't. The door's still bolted.
Let me try. Lady Blenkinsop? Lady Blenkinsop, are you awake?
That's Bobo. He's heard us.
But why doesn't Lady Blenkinsop answer? Open the door. Please open the door.
I think we better force the door. Come on, Potters, help me.
Yes, sir.
We'll use this heavy chair. Steady now. 1 and 2 and... Easy, Bobo, easy. It's all right, old fellow.
Oh, she's still asleep. But she's so white. Oh, Dr. Tillinghurst, I'm frightened.
I'll have a look at her. Where's my stethoscope? No pulse. Pupils contracted.
Miss Kitty, look there on the bed table. She did open the brandy bottle after all.
Don't touch anything. Everything must be left exactly as it is.
But Dr. Tillinghurst...
Lady Blenkinsop is dead. Poisoned.
Oh,
no.
Potters, go for the police.
Yes, sir.
Tell them Lady Blenkinsop has committed suicide. Tell them to inform Scotland Yard.
But she wouldn't do that. I know she
Miss
wouldn't.
Kitty, I want you to go to the nearest apothecary's. I shall want some things. We shall have to make some tests. Meantime, I'll try to fasten this door. No one is to be loud in here. No one. Come on, Bobo. Come on. It's a good boy.
But she didn't kill herself, Mr. Holmes. I know she didn't. She was terrified of death.
Then someone else must have poisoned her. You did say she was poisoned.
Well, Dr. Tillinghurst seemed to think so. But who could have done it? No one could have got into the room. The door was barred on the inside. So were all the shutters, I noticed particularly.
Could anyone have been hidden somewhere in the room before she went upstairs?
Oh, no. I looked under the bed and the dressing table. She always made me do that when I brought her up to bed. She was terrified of the dark, you see. No, she was quite alone when she met her death.
Maybe she took an overdose of something by accident. Maybe the brandy was poisoned. Maybe she had a secret sorrow.
Watson, I abhor guessing games. I prefer facts. Get your overcoat while I summon a four-wheeler. It's vital we reach Lady Blenkinsop's house before Scotland Yard has had a chance to muck up the clues. You say that Lady Blenkinsop was French. You don't happen to know her family name?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. It was de Fezinac. Her father was a count.
De Fezinac. No wonder her bridal brandy was rather special, eh, Watson?
De Fezinac. Sounds vaguely familiar. Can't say I place it, however.
The de Fezinacs are a branch, I might say, the main trunk of the great house of Armagnac.
From which the name of the brandy is derived. By Jove, of course.
Oh, I do remember Lady Blenkinsop going on about her family's vineyards. It seems it was customary for every daughter of the house to take with her, as part of her dowry, 6 cases of the brandy that was bottled the year of her birth. Lady Blenkinsop always boasted that hers was a particularly fine year. She opened a bottle every birthday.
6 cases. Let's see, that's 72 bottles. Lady Blenkinsop was 87. By Jove, that means she was 17 when she was married.
All of which has no bearing on the case whatsoever. Never clutter up the mind with non-essentials, Watson. That's your weakness.
Well, who's to decide what's essential in a case like this?
I am. Tell me, Miss Kitty, who benefits by Lady Blenkinsop's death?
Benefits? Why, no one. Goodness, no one ever wanted her to die, I'm sure. We were all much too fond of her.
Let me put it this way, then. Who inherits Lady Blenkinsop's money? Her nephew, I suppose, and you and Potters have been left a small legacy, no doubt.
Gracious, no, Mr. Holmes. Lady Blenkinsop's last will leaves everything to a French society of wine tasters. The Chevalier des Vendages Anciens.
The Knights of the Ancient Vintages.
Go to the head of the class, Watson.
It's for the improvement of the French wine industry, you see.
You said her last will. How long ago did she make it?
Oh, about 8 months ago, Mr. Holmes.
Who was her heir before that?
Why, Reggie, of course. But you mustn't draw any wrong conclusions about that, Mr. Holmes. Reggie didn't need the money. Why, he's plenty of his own. Really, they were very devoted to each other. They just didn't always see eye to eye about certain subjects.
For instance?
Oh, I don't know. Reggie didn't approve of Bobo being fed sweetmeats. They had terrific squabbles about things like that.
What exactly was the squabble that caused Lady Blenkinsop to change her will?
It was all so silly, really. A tempest in a teapot. It didn't mean a thing.
What didn't mean a thing?
His holding my hand. Reggie, I mean. He just happened to have handed me the morning mail, and he just forgot to let go.
Lady Blenkinsop didn't approve, I take it.
She was always afraid he would make what she called an unsuitable alliance.
The French point of view, of course, eh, Holmes?
Not entirely. How did Reggie react?
He was furious. He said when he married, it would be when and how and to whom he dashed well pleased.
Bully for him.
But it's all so ridiculous. You see, Reggie never showed any interest in me before or since.
Pity, eh, Holmes?
Oh, here we are. This is Lady Blenkinsop's house.
Gloomy old mausoleum, eh, Holmes?
Hop out, Watson, and ring the doorbell. That's a good chap.
Oh, that won't be necessary, Mr. Holmes. I have a key.
I gather Scotland Yard is here before us.
How can you tell, Mr. Holmes?
Unless I'm very much mistaken, that's Inspector Lestrade's official umbrella still dripping on the vestibule floor. Perhaps we're not too late after all.
Oh, Miss Kitty, I'm so glad you've come back. I just brought the gentleman from Scotland Yard. He's in the reception room.
Well, if it isn't Inspector Lestrade, the watchdog of Scotland Yard.
Holmes, what in blazes are you doing here?
My usual occupation, investigating a crime.
There's no crime this time, Holmes. Lady dies. Poisoned, they tell me. Absolutely alone she is. Doors and windows locked tight on the inside. Clear case of suicide.
The Scotland Yard method. Reductio ad absurdum.
And what's wrong with that? Whatever it is?
Personally, I prefer to review the facts.
Dr. Tillinghast says, will you be kind enough to come upstairs, gentlemen? He's waiting outside her ladyship's door.
We'll be right up. Thank you, Potters.
Oh, great Scott. What's that unearthly racket?
It's Bobo, her ladyship's dog. Dr. Tillinghast says he's been carrying on like that on her threshold ever since he took him out of the room and closed the door.
Bobo, don't! Oh, stop him, somebody.
He knows she's lying there dead, poor little creature.
Can't you make him stop, Dr. Tillinghast? He's always been so fond of you.
Make him stop. He won't even let me near the door. Nice, Bobo. Be a good dog. There, you see.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Tillinghast. This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, how do you do, sir?
How do you do? Suppose we allow Scotland Yard to handle the situation.
Think I want to have man taken over by a vicious brute? No, thanks.
But he's not vicious. At least he never was before.
Very well, I'll take over. Mr. Sherlock Holmes to the rescue. That's enough, Bobo. We know how you feel. That's right. Quiet down.
Well, now look at that. He's crawling over to him. He's letting himself be picked up. He's licking his ear.
Wanted to tell me something, is that it? Yes, I understand. I understand very well, old fellow. Now, Dr. Tillinghast, the inspector and I will see if we can get to the bottom of this mystery.
It's no mystery to me, Holmes.
That's what you think, my dear Lestrade. That's what you think. Now, if you'll follow me, gentlemen. This will be rather unpleasant, Miss Kitty. You'd better remain outside.
You see, Inspector Lestrade, the pupils are definitely contracted. Face pale, extremities cyanotic.
Right you are, Dr. Tillinghast. It's poison, all right. But which one?
We won't know until we've made tests, of course. I sent Miss Kitty out for a solution of ferric chloride. If it's opium or one of its derivatives, as I suspect, that should do the trick.
Dr. Tillinghast, were you in the habit of prescribing opium or any of the other somniferous poisons for Lady Blenkinsop?
Certainly not.
I say, Holmes, look here. The brandy bottle has been tipped over. All the brandy's run out on the carpet.
Oh, poor Lady Blenkinsop. She always said she'd die when the brandy was gone, and now it is, and so is she.
Oh, that'll do, Potters. We've no time for idle superstition.
Yes, sir.
If you ask me, it's a plot. Whoever spilled the brandy knew it had been poisoned. Didn't want to leave any about to be tested.
The brandy was not poisoned, Watson. Here, notice the wax that sealed the cork. That wax was melted over that cork when Lady Blenkinsop was a girl. She herself removed it last night after she'd locked her door when she was by herself.
Well, at least she did have a drink of it on her birthday, poor old soul. And here it is now seeped into the carpet. What a dreadful waste.
You say she never took a sedative, Dr. Tillinghast, or a painkiller of any sort?
That she did, sir. A bit of laudanum when she got a toothache.
Oh, yeah, of course. I did prescribe laudanum a year or so ago. Christmas it was, I think. Yes, when she developed an ache in a lower bicuspid.
Did Lady Blenkinsop suffer from frequent toothaches, Potters?
Only when she was excited, sir. Like holidays, birthdays, and now and then when she bet on a horse.
Then, yesterday being her birthday, she probably developed a toothache and took a dose of laudanum before retiring.
Of course, that explains it all. Laudanum is an opium derivative. She took an overdose. You know, I never could persuade her to be accurate, her confounded Gallic temperament. Potters, do you know where she kept her medicines?
Oh, yes, sir. Top drawer of her dressing table.
Oh, yes, of course, I remember. Let's see. Yes. Yes, here we are. Batley's Liquor Opii Sedativus. That's double-strength laudanum. She must have bought this at the apothecary's herself and didn't realize it was at least 4 times as strong as the prescription I gave her. Doesn't take much of an overdose to turn the trick when you're 89.
Well, Holmes, there you are. Now are you satisfied? A plain case of accidental suicide by poison.
I've never doubted that Lady Blenkinsop was doped, Lestrade, and quite probably by her own hand. But that's not what caused her death. No, Lestrade. Lady Blenkinsop was asphyxiated, strangled. The evidence is obvious.
Really, Mr. Holmes? I'm astonished that a man of your reputation should be ignorant of the fact that the symptom of asphyxia and death by one of the somniferous poisons are almost identical.
Yes, he's right, Holmes. Every doctor knows that. Besides, there's no sign of a struggle. If she'd been strangled, she'd have put up a fight.
Not necessarily if she'd been doped first. Tell me, Potters, was Lady Blenkinsop in the habit of wearing her pearls to bed?
I see what you're driving at, Holmes. The pearls did it. Got caught around her neck. And with all that laudanum in her, she never realized they were strangling her.
Wrong again, Lestrade. She was strangled not accidentally by her pearls, but intentionally by someone who saw her helpless condition and held a pillow or perhaps the bedclothes over her mouth until she stopped breathing. In fact, I strongly suspect she came too long enough to put out a hand and upset that bottle of brandy.
Oh, imagination, Mr. Holmes. Pure imagination.
Really? Then how do you account for this lint up her nostrils?
Well, I'll be... Well, I never noticed.
You didn't notice, Lestrade, because you didn't look. If you perform an autopsy, I've no doubt you'll find more bits of lint in her lungs. Lint from the very finest French linen.
Lady Blenkinsop always bought her linens in France.
Exactly.
Oh, but this is preposterous. How did the chap get in to strangle her? Remember, the doors and windows were still bolted tight when Dr. Tillinghast and the others broke in this morning and found her dead.
When the doctor said he found her dead?
What's the difference?
Why do you suppose he sent the rest of the household out of the house in such a hurry?
Why?
First, because he didn't want them to get a good look at her and realize she wasn't dead, only drugged. And second, and here comes the really diabolical part of the whole affair. Second, so he could come back quietly when the house was empty and finish her off.
Ridiculous. Lot of lies. You can't prove a thing.
No? Then why wasn't Bobo upset when you broke in this morning? Because he knew his mistress was still alive.
Nonsense.
Why did he later turn on you and offer to bite you? Because he'd seen you go back and kill his mistress.
Of course, if you're going to put a dumb beast in the witness box.
And why is the brandy splashed on your shoe?
That's not brandy, it's mud. I've been walking in the rain.
Analysis will show what it is, Dr. Tillinghast.
Well, suppose it is brandy. I sometimes stop into a pub on a bad day for a brandy and soda. I may have spilled some on my boots.
That's right, Holmes. What can we prove?
Now, let's be sensible. What reason, what possible motive could I have for killing off one of my best patients?
That's a fact, Holmes. No motive. No possible motive whatsoever.
Would you consider a fabulous rope of pearls worth, say, 8,000 or 10,000 pounds? Would you consider that sufficient motive, my dear Lestrade?
But Lady Blenkinsop's pearls are still obviously on the body.
Those are not the Blenkinsop pearls, Lestrade.
What?
Oh, I'll admit they're very clever imitations. Yes, if you'll investigate that bulge in the doctor's upper left-hand pocket, I think you may discover the genuine pearls. Watson, quick, don't let him get away.
No, you don't. Stop or I'll fill you full of lead. By Jove, I'm sorry, Holmes. I had no idea the blighter would make a bolt for it.
Don't worry, Watson. I fancy Lestrade is still capable of handling the more rough-and-tumble side of apprehending criminals.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, what happened? I just saw Inspector Lestrade escorting Dr. Tillinghast out of the front door in handcuffs. What does it mean?
My dear Miss Kitty, it means that the criminal has yet to be born who can put anything over on Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
A very entertaining story, Dr. Watson.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Mr. Harris.
Now, of course, there are one or two small matters that puzzle me. Why did Holmes say the dog had told him something when he picked him up?
A very interesting question with a very interesting answer. I'll give it to you after you've said a few words about the excellent product that foots the bill for us.
Right, Dr. Watson. When you can go to your favorite store and get the nation's most exciting clothes value, that's just good common sense. For the Clipper Craft plan is just another matter of simple logic. So that you receive all the benefits of group purchasing, it concentrates the buying power of 924 leading stores across the country. It makes possible the nation's highest standard of clothes value, brought to you at the leading independent store you really enjoy visiting and that enjoys serving you. Where you're a person, not just another number on a sales check. Now, bear in mind that Clipper Craft clothes are faultlessly tailored from luxurious, long-wearing fabrics, that Clipper Craft's smart styles fit to custom perfection. Despite the fact that costs of materials and manufacturing are rising, there are new fall Clipper Craft suits at only $35 and $40. There are a few special models at $43.75. Clipper Craft top coats and overcoats are only $30 to $40, and sport jackets only $24. Selling expensive clothes at inexpensive prices at the nation's finest stores is the great big idea behind the Clipper Craft plan. That's why men who know insist on Clipper Craft clothes. So be sure to visit the Clipper Craft store in your city.
The leading stores in the metropolitan area that bring you Clipper Craft clothes are Saks 34th, Broadway at 34th Street, Manhattan, Abraham and Straus, Brooklyn, the Boulevard Men's Shop, Kresge, Newark, New Jersey, and the B&B Clothes Shop, 164-08 Jamaica Avenue, Jamaica. These great, courteous, and friendly stores are proud to add their names to that of Clipper Craft in the label of your suit, topcoat, sports jacket, and overcoat.
And now for your question about Bobo, Mr. Harris. When Holmes picked up the dog, he was struck by the fact that his paws were wet with something that smelled suspiciously like brandy. Later, when he entered the death chamber and saw the overturned bottle, he knew exactly what must have happened.
I wonder if I'd have been that smart. One more thing, Dr. Watson.
Yes, Mr. Harris?
What story are you going to give us next week?
Next week, I think it'll be the case of the missing heiress, or how a very charming and very hot-headed Canadian girl disappeared from her carriage in full regalia on her way to be presented at court.
The makers of Clipper Craft clothes and 924 leading retail stores from coast to coast have brought you the first in a new series of broadcasts featuring the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is produced and directed by Basil Lochran. Our stories are written by Edith Miser, with special music by Albert Berman. Holmes is played by John Stanley, Dr. Watson by Alfred Shirley. If you don't know your Clipper Craft dealer, write Clipper Craft, 200 Fifth Avenue, New York City. Be sure to listen again next week to Sherlock Holmes in The Case of the Missing Heiress. If you wish to attend the Sherlock Holmes broadcasts in New York, see your local Clipper Craft dealer, and he'll tell you how to obtain tickets. This is Cy Harris speaking for Clipper Craft Clothes. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Stay with us for Melvin Elliott's report on the news, which follows station identification. Fly Eastern Airlines' new type Constellation service to Houston in only 5 hours and 50 minutes. For immediate reservations, call Eastern Airlines or your travel agent. WOR, the World Series station in New York.
Welcome back. Well, I wouldn't say the best Holmes-Watson pairing. It was a kind of an interesting case where they made us actually listen to another ad before Clipper Craft before they would explain what happened. One thing that they didn't explain is how the doctor knew for sure to be there with to have the fake pearls with him. Because he didn't have a way of knowing for sure on arrival that the lady would be doped. I should also note that back writing for the show after a absence in the last few years of the Nigel Bruce shows with Basil Rathbone and Tom Conway, is Edith Miser, who was a favorite of the Doyle family, taking up the writing of the scripts. And I will be honest, that this was a particular Sherlock Holmes series I debated with myself whether to actually play on the show. The good news is that there are some better and more interesting episodes. But a lot of fans do have issues with this particular portrayal. But I think next week's will be better, so join us then. Well, before we get started, I do want to give some thank yous to those who have donated since I last recorded an episode 3 days ago. So we've received donations from Mark, David, Ross, Jim, Val, Tom, Helen, Chandler, and Ariana. Well, thank you so much for your support, and every one of them will receive access to our premium site, which we provide to anyone who gives a tip of $7 or more. And now we're going to turn to today's program, yours truly, Johnny Dollar. I misspoke last week. I said we only had 3 episodes of yours truly, Johnny Dollar left. We actually have 4 counting today's. The Maynard Collins matter. This one is going to be a little tough because there's a couple spots where the sound quality is low, plus the beginning of the show is missing. But thanks to John Abbott's book, The Who Is Johnny Dollar Matter, we do know how the story begins. Johnny gets a call from Ed Grimm of the Athena Life and Casualty Company that an insured by the name of Maynard Collins was found dead in Colorado Springs in what appears at first glance to be a car accident, but they think that he had died before the accident. And the beneficiary is the wife, Delia Collins. So Johnny flies out to Colorado Springs and goes to meet with Lieutenant Anders of the police force out there. And that's where our story begins. Again, sound quality is not the greatest, so we do the best we can here. But here now is Joined in Progress, the Maynard Collins matter.
Suppose you tell me how much you know. If Miss Ann Collins was dead before the act double indemnity clause in his policy, you won't find out. You could have saved yourself a trip for we. Now, I'll tell you when off a canyon road, a little after 10 o'clock that. Coroner's report 2 hours when the accident occurred. There's a blunt instrument. Someone back 2 hours later, that car drops off at his wife. Apparently wasn't home. He brought her home about 11. That's Jack's. Cab picked her, drove them home. She's been into her, doctor says. You drive over there and see her any time now. Drive over there? Oh, Maynard. That's about 5 miles nearer them. Only some people live there up the top of the little canyon. Narrow. There's a lot of quick turns first turn. Uh-huh. Smash. Is he the only one who heard of this? That's not too surprising, though. Up the top of the canyon. His neighbors at the first turn of the road below Collins. No one lives in between them. After Pinkert, there isn't much the rest of the way into Manitou. Pretty icy road is, but it comes out right on Manitou's main drag. If you know how to handle that road, you could get right in the center of things in 3 minutes. Suppose we go out there, see Mrs. Collins. You can see the layout yourself. Fine. Oh, does she know yet that her husband was murdered? Yeah. Doc told her a little while ago. Now, that's where the car went over there. Uh-huh. How much of a drop is it? Oh, 40, 50 feet, I guess. They got the car out, though, an hour or so ago. Should have a report on that before too long. That must have been Pinkert's house there at the curve. Yeah, we'll check him after we talk to Mrs. Collins. Look, you see, the way the canyon slopes, you can see the tops of those buildings. Ah, yeah. And they're on the main street we just turned off. That's right. So it isn't as isolated as it looks up here. Well, looks like this is it. This altitude will cut your wind. Oh, I got to live 5 or 10 minutes up here. Never noticed it. Takes a while to get used to it, all right.
Yes?
Lieutenant Anders, to see Mrs. Collins.
Oh, sure. Come in. Come in.
This is Mr. Dollar.
Hello.
How you
I'm
doing?
Ralph Turner, Aunt Delia's nephew. She's this way, living here. Aunt Delia, this is Lieutenant...
Lieutenant Anders, Mrs. Collins, Colorado Springs Police.
Oh, yes, Lieutenant Anders.
And this is Mr. Dollar. He represents your husband's insurance company.
I see.
Mrs. Collins.
Well, sit down, gentlemen. Ralph, please, all of you. Where's your mother, Ralph?
I think she's in the kitchen. She thought you ought to try to eat something.
Oh, my. Tell her not just yet. Tell her I'd like for her to be here.
All right, Aunt Delia.
Well, none of us know what to do, you know. It's just unbelievable.
I'm very sorry, Mrs. Collins.
Thank you. Now, is there some question about the insurance, Mr. Dollar?
No, not really, Mrs. Collins. Since the accident wasn't the cause of your husband's death, there's no question about it at all. I'm just here to get a complete report for the company.
Well, I know Maynard was very prompt about payments.
The policy's in order, Mrs. Collins.
Oh, this is my sister, Mrs. Turner, Lieutenant Anders, and Mr. Dollar.
Oh, how do you do?
I imagine these gentlemen want to ask some questions, Ada. I wanted you and Ralph here in case I forget anything.
Oh, of course, dear. Anything we can do.
You got back to the house at 11 o'clock last night, Mrs. Collins. In a taxi, I understand.
That's right. I've been gone all evening. Since, well, it must have been around 7, wasn't it, Ada?
Just about exactly 7. You see, our Thursday nights are a regular ritual with us. They always time out just about the same, don't they, Ralph?
Yeah, just about.
Ada means we do the same thing every Thursday night. She and Ralph call for me about 7. We have dinner in Manitou, then go over to the Springs to the Pueblo to see a movie. I usually get home around 10:30 or 11, depending on when the show is out.
All three of you have dinner and see the picture together?
Well, no. Ralph usually eats before they pick me up. He's just our chauffeur. Takes us to the restaurant in Manitou. We take a taxi to the Springs and taxi back.
They drop me on the way. It's cheaper that way.
Was your husband home when you left last evening?
Yes, he was. He was just finishing his dinner when Ralph came to the door for me.
So far as you know, did he have any plans for the evening?
No. He usually plans something for Thursdays. Last night he'd spoken of Mr. Pinkett coming up and then playing cards, but for some reason that was called off.
Is your neighbor down the road?
Yes.
You don't know why their plans were called off?
No, I really don't. Maynard was talking to you, Ralph. Did he mention anything?
No, he just said Mr. Pinkett said he couldn't make it. He asked me if I could come back. I told him I was going bowling, if he could come with me. He said no. I sure wish I'd come back now.
Ralph and his uncle were devoted to one another. You see, Ralph's father, my husband, passed away some years ago. Maynard's just been wonderful to us both ever since.
He sure has.
Well, Maynard and I never had any children of our own, Lieutenant, so Ralph, of course, was special to both of us.
Mrs. Collins, this may be blunt, but I'll have to ask you. Did your husband have any enemies? Anyone who might want him out of the way?
Why, not that I know of. I just can't imagine anyone not liking Maynard. I suppose that's just natural.
Someone killed him.
I know.
Look, do you have to say things like that?
I'm afraid so.
Well, that's all right, Ralph. Tenant has every right. I want to help all I can.
Mrs. Collins, was your car in front of your house when you left last night?
Yes, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. Maynard often left it there.
Yes, it was there, all right. Parked heading down the canyon. Remember, Ralph? We pulled up just in front of it.
Yeah, we did.
Was it important where the car was?
It was important to the murderer, Mrs. Collins. It must have looked like a cover-up for him. A natural just sitting there in front of the house.
Did it happen in the car?
We don't know yet. We don't know where it happened. We have men checking outside. Some of them will be coming in here in a while to give the house a going over. After that, I get a report on the car. We should know a lot more.
I hope so, Lieutenant. Whoever it was, I hope you find him soon.
We'll get back to you, Mrs. Collins. We'd appreciate it if you'd stay here together. We may want to talk to you again.
We'll be here. We won't leave Aunt Delia.
If you think of anything that might help us, let us know. By the way, Ralph, where do you do your bowling?
The Clark Lanes in Manitou.
Mm-hmm.
I was there. You can check.
We will.
We did, too. According to the bowling alley reservation book, Ralph had the third alley from 7:15 to 10:15. A regular Thursday night customer, the owner said. Apparently, the whole family spent their Thursday nights in a prescribed manner, and everyone was properly accounted for between 8 o'clock when Maynard Collins was murdered and a little after 10 when Collins' neighbor, Doug Pinkard, heard the crash. It seemed like a good idea to talk to Pinkard.
Nope, it couldn't have been any earlier. I know, because the 10 o'clock news had just come on when I heard the crash.
Were you alone when you heard it, Mr. Pinkard?
I'm a bachelor, Mr. Dollar. Alone a good bit of the time.
You called off some plans you had last night, Mr. Collins, didn't you?
Yes, I did, but what difference does that make?
Do you know that Collins was murdered?
No, I don't know that. How could he be murdered and go off the road?
He'd been dead 2 hours when that happened. You're sure about the time you heard the crash?
I'm positive.
2 hours. Well, that would make him dead around 8 o'clock.
That's right. Does that mean anything to you?
No, it doesn't mean anything to me.
You didn't hear anything around 8 o'clock, any commotion or struggle or a car going by or anything?
No, not at 8 o'clock. I heard a car around 7, but that was Dealey and them. I saw them go. They're regular as clockwork, every Thursday night.
And that's the last car you saw the crash?
That's the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's the last one.
You're sure you'd hear a car if it came by this way?
I usually do. I don't get a lot of traffic up here, I usually take a look when I hear a car coming.
Well, maybe there's another road out of here. Is there, Mr. Pinkard?
No, this one sort of peters out up above Collins's. The only way to get up to Collins's is up this road here.
How well do you know the Collins?
Well enough, I guess. I've been up to his house a lot. Mostly when she isn't there. I always had an idea she didn't care much for me. Then I'm not used to women around. Just don't know how to judge them.
You knew Mr. Collins better then?
Oh, yes, lots better. And I liked him. I liked him a lot. I'm just real sorry.
Would you say they got along all right? Do you think they were happy together?
You talked to Dee?
Yeah. You talked to her?
She said they got along?
She implied that, but I'm asking you, not her.
Well, maybe they did. Like I said, I'm not used to women. I just don't know how to judge them.
You don't think they were happy together, Mr. Pinkard?
Well, maybe they were. I don't think it was serious, though. Sometimes they fought about things.
How do you know that?
Well, Maynard told me mostly. And then a couple of times I wandered in up there, and they'd be going at it a little,
About anything in particular?
No, I wouldn't say so. I don't remember anything in particular. I try to stay out of things like that. Just get along.
Did you ever hear them going at it about money?
Oh, I guess, yes. Yes, money. Well, that's all. I was fixing to go for a climb. That's the way I spend most of my time, No reason why I shouldn't go now, is there?
Mr. Pinkard, do you have any idea who would kill Mr. Collins?
No. I can't think of anyone who'd do it.
Somehow I had the idea that Pinkard was ordinarily a man of very few words, that he'd said more in the last 10 minutes than he had for the last 10 years, but you never know. Anders was pretty stumped. I didn't blame him. No scene of the crime, no murder weapon. No one wanted Collins dead. It wasn't going to be easy. Back at headquarters, a new development was waiting for us. His name was Clint Bingham.
I was on a service station, Manitou. Maynard, Mr. Collins, called me about 7:30 last night. Told me he had a flat tire he wanted me to come change. I was alone, had a couple of customers, and I told him I'd come up when it goes up for the night, and I did.
What time was that?
It was right at 8 o'clock. Oh. Well, I get up there, knock on his door, lights around the house, and then comes the door. He's gone somewhere, but the back. Keys were in the car, so I changed the tire, flattened myself, and moved. And so, except, maybe I'm imagining this.
What?
Well, it seemed to me I heard something. Something in the brush. It could have been man or something. And I don't know. A bit later, it sounded like something sort of running. I wouldn't want to say for sure.
Did you tell what direction the sounds came from?
It seemed like it was John Pinkard.
Uh-huh.
I don't think most of Pinkards always find the one that all.
How about that?
Yeah, I checked in with you earlier, only I went hunting over this morning. Just got back in. I heard about it.
Just a minute. Anders.
Got a couple of things for you, Lieutenant. Looks like Collins was killed with some brush not far from his back door. Pretty spruce, though.
How about the weapon?
Yeah, they're still looking. They've checked the cars, nothing there. Just got a call from the emergency hospital. That fellow Pinkard reported the crash.
Yeah?
He walked in front of a car over in Maynard. Pretty bad shape.
We will return to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. If you're in the market for a Sunday night date, here are a few suggestions. Matter of fact, you needn't take your pick. You can date them all. Marie Wilson and Kathy Lewis on My Friend Irma. Eve Arden as our Miss Brooks. Mary Livingston on The Jack Benny Show. Briny-tempered Sapphire on Amos and Andy. And Janet Waldo as Corliss Archer. Stay home tomorrow night and date the whole gang over most of these same CBS radio stations. Now with our star Edmund O'Brien, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
It was going to be a while before Pinkard would be in condition to talk. According to the driver of the car and witnesses, Pinkard never even looked, just walked out into the path of the car. One of the witnesses, the kid who worked at Clint Bingham's service station, said Pinkard had come in,
asked for Flint, and took it very big when he learned he had gone hunting. Finally, Pinkett came around. Anders and I listened.
I knew Kent was up there at Maynard. I heard him come and go. I'd have told you, too. You just said Maynard was murdered about the time I knew Kent was there. And Kent's a good boy. I wanted to hear him say he was there first before I told you.
Holding evidence. Serious.
I don't care if it is. Man don't have too many times. Kent and Maynard were the two I had. Maynard's died. I can't lose Kent, too. Until I'm sure.
Why did you walk in front of the car, Mr. Pinkett?
Boy said Kent had gone hunting. I heard maybe he was long ago. I didn't see any car.
Flint says he heard someone running near your house when he was changing Collins' tire. Is that you, Pinkett?
It was not. I never left the house last night.
Suppose you did leave the house. Suppose you killed Collins out behind his house. Flint came, he interrupted you, so you ran. You knew he might have seen you. So today you had to get to him before he got to us.
Why would I kill him?
Why would you kill him, Pinkett?
Ask her, DJ. Ask her what they thought about yesterday. I'm not going to say that.
The doctor motioned us out of the room. Anders wasn't buying the quarrel or anything else much that Pinkett had said. He decided to stay at the hospital until Pinkett could talk again. With his permission, I went back to Delia Collins. She was alone.
I sent Ralph and Ada home for a change of clothes and the rest. I'm stronger now, and the strain's been so much for me. Oh, I'm sorry to hear about Mr. Pinkett.
Mrs. Collins, he says you and your husband quarreled yesterday.
Why, we did. Oh, it wasn't a quarrel exactly. I had my opinions, and Maynard had his. I'd really forgotten Mr. Pinkett was willing to happen. I don't see how it could be important at all now.
Anything's apt to be. Might be a big help.
Well, all right. I'm glad Ada and Ralph aren't here. It's better. I'm afraid it would hurt them. Maynard had such plans for Ralph. I tried to tell him no one could live up to what he expected of him. Ralph's not much of a student, and Maynard was paying his college expenses. Yesterday, I guess Maynard went over to talk to the dean.
Colleges in town?
Yes, in the Springs. Maynard said the boy wasn't trying. The dean didn't think so either. Well, I took Ralph's part. I guess I always have. Anyway, Maynard said he told the dean to take the boy out of school, and he wasn't footing the bills anymore. I must admit, I was very upset. I just don't know half what he said.
You remember, did your husband say whether or not he told Ralph?
No. He hadn't told him. I begged him not to. He said that was up to the dean. I thought maybe he'd send him down there and change his mind.
It didn't seem like much to bother Anders with, not until I knew more. And when I knew more, it wasn't worth it. Dean Mitchener at the college hadn't told Ralph anything about his uncle's visit the day before. He'd planned to tell him the next morning. But after he heard about the tragedy, he decided the news would keep. I told him where he could reach me, and I rejoined Lieutenant Anders at the hospital. They came up with the murder weapon, found it half buried under some brush. The canyon slopes down toward the main street. It's a tire iron. Bingham's? He says it isn't his. Tire irons are pretty much alike. We're checking his prints against those on the iron. I can't figure Bingham showing up like he did. We wouldn't have known he was there if he hadn't told us. He could have thought Pinkett had told us, or that he would. Still don't know anything about the motive. I'm waiting to put the two of them together. Someone's got to give. Pinkett's still in bad shape? Doc says to wait a while. Okay, thanks. Be right back. Johnny Dollar.
This is Dean Mitchener, Mr. Dollar. Now, this may not be worth anything to you, but I just found out Ralph did know that his uncle was removing him from school.
He did? How?
Now, my secretary seems to have told him she was here when Mr. Collins came yesterday. Being a friend of Ralph, she told him late yesterday afternoon. Something about she thought she should warn him.
I see. Well, I certainly appreciate your calling me, Dean Mitchener.
I'm very upset about this breach of trust, Mr. Dollar. I want you to know that I intend to do something stringent about it.
Now, don't be too hard on her, Dean. She may have done us all a favor. Anders, Ralph did know Collins was taking him out of school. Dean's secretary told him.
He did, huh?
It's the nearest thing to a motive we've got.
Yeah. How about the bowling alley? I was there 3 hours last night.
I'd like to check there again, if it's okay with you.
Go ahead. I'll try anything. I'll have him picked up and brought here.
Sure. I set pins for him. He bowls the alley 3 times every week.
There wasn't anything different about last night?
No. Just knock the pins down. I set him up, same as any other night.
And he bowled from 7:15 till 10:15 last night, huh?
Well, I'm not sure of the times. The book would show that.
Well, that's what the book says.
Well, then, did you say 7:15 till 10:15?
That's right.
Well, I quit before 10 last night.
You're sure about that?
Sure, I'm sure. I was home by 10, a couple miles from here. And I'll tell you something else. No one bowls on my alley from about 7:45 to 8:15. That's when I eat my dinner. My alley's closed then.
The time's fit. Ralph could have made it up to his uncle's and back while the pin girl was eating the dinner. But if he'd driven up the canyon, Pinkett would have heard him. Maybe he hadn't driven up. There's that to consider. Lieutenant Anders was considering a lot of things when I got back.
Oh, come in, Dollar. Ralph here was beginning to open up a little. He doesn't deny he knew Collins was taking him out of school. Why should I deny it? It didn't mean anything to me going to school. Uncle Maynard's idea in the first place. I'd have to have a better reason than that to kill him.
Did you have a better reason, Ralph?
Suppose I was bowling last night.
You weren't bowling from 7:45 till 8:15 when your uncle was killed.
Sure of that, Dollar?
The pin girl was having a dinner then, always does, she said.
How about that, Ralph? So maybe I wasn't bowling for a while.
What'd you do in that half hour?
I don't know. Nothing important.
Did you leave the bowling alley, Ralph?
I don't know.
Yeah, Lieutenant, the last set of prints checked.
Thanks, Sergeant. Thanks very much.
Yes, you were prints, Ralph. Murder weapon. It didn't have anything to do with school. I left the bowling alley, all right. I couldn't stand just walking around knowing what I knew. Then you got a hold of him. After the car. After something heavy went up.
Did you walk past Mr. Pinkett's?
No. Off the road and climbed the canyon. Pinkett always knows who comes and goes. I got up to the back door of the house. The Maynard was there on the back porch. She was following me. She never made a sound. I come down a ways. I heard a car out front. I ran and went back to the canyon, maybe. The road, maybe. Listen on the back door.
But you went back again, didn't you?
Yeah. I thought about him. How to find him. Maybe even Aunt Delia or Mom. Listen, I went back. Remember the car out front. Just a minute.
Why'd you do it, Ralph?
It was just him. He was being such a generous guy, always paying his bills. Everybody ramming down my throat all the time. I knew he wasn't so great. I knew about him and women for a long time. Sorry for Aunt Delia, that was all. So I found out he was bothering Mom. I had to kill him.
Ralph's mother corroborated his story, and when they got through telling it to the jury, it was a very quick decision for a justifiable homicide. Expense count item 2, $175, transportation back to Hartford. Miscellaneous expense account total, $310. Remarks? The company need only pay the straight life value of the policy. The double indemnity clause was never even a factor in the case. In view of the real factors involved, I can wish that Maynard Collins had gone over that canyon in an accident. It would have been cleaner and kinder all the way around. That's true. Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Kathleen Height with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien can now be seen starring in the Paramount Pictures Technicolor production Silver City. Featured in tonight's cast were Ed Begley, Gil Stratton Jr., Jeanette Nolan, Virginia Gregg, Howard McNear, and Hy Everbeck. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle.
This is Dan Cubberly inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as
yours truly, Johnny Dollar. This is Edmund O'Brien again. I'd like to speak to you for a moment about one of the most important duties of American citizens. Today, every American has an opportunity to share in our common defense effort. And right now, this opportunity has become a duty for all of us. The armed forces of the United States need blood, our blood. The Korean campaign has gravely depleted the supply on hand, and this must be replenished if we are to afford our servicemen the protection they are giving us. No matter what your age, sex, or station in life, you can contribute to American defense by donating a pint of your blood to the men of your Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marines. Call your local blood donor center or Red Cross chapter today for an appointment. Remember, your donation of blood may save the life of a wounded serviceman. Give your blood today to save a life tomorrow.
A little earlier, we mentioned the ladies who'll be on CBS Radio tomorrow night. Now, here are the men. My friend Irma shares her lazy boyfriend Al with one and all. If you like 'em older, there is Professor Kropotkin. For a date that's shy, try Mr. Boynton, the object of Eve Arden's affections, as our Miss Brooks. Enjoy the fun with these men on most of these same CBS radio stations tomorrow night. This is the CBS Radio Network.
Welcome back. Well, gotta love the time period. Bothering Mom made the whole case justifiable homicide, though they may have been being delicate. I was a little unclear on the end, too, because they said the jury returned with a verdict of justifiable homicide. Now, usually, when we think of the main trial juries, they return with either guilty or not guilty. They don't find justifiable homicide. Though a coroner's jury might. Though I don't know if they would in this case. But an interesting episode. If a bit fragmented, I do apologize for the sound on this one. But hopefully it'll be better next week. Alright, well now we turn to listener comments and feedback. Margaret asks, is the Johnny Dollar music, particularly the 5-part episodes, the same music used in Fantasy Island? Thanks. Well, let me go ahead. Let's go ahead and play the Johnny Dollar music here. That was used on the 5-part episodes. This is the intro from the first episode, The McCormick Matter. And then I'll answer the question.
Welcome to Johnny Dollar. Beginning tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Welcome back. Well, I'll admit I'm not a particular fan of Fantasy Island. I could, I've read descriptions on it. I could probably get into it. I just have never had the fortune to be able to catch the reruns. But I did find a clip of the show on YouTube and the opening there. And to be honest, it really didn't sound like it. The first movement kind of sounded a little bit like it, but it was a lot softer, and then the tune went off in another direction. And when I went ahead and checked into the music credits on the Fantasy Island show, there was nobody there I recognized who would have been a likely musical influence over Johnny Dollar. That's not to say that the theme is original to Johnny Dollar. It's actually was used on the Dick Tracy television show before it aired on Johnny Dollar over the radio, the Dick Tracy television show with Ralph Bird that aired in the very early parts of the 1950s. We do have an email from Anita who says, I've been listening to your show since the beginning. Nice to see your podcast grow. You have such energy and passion for great detectives. Thank you so much. And thank you, Anita. Keith writes, I love these old shows. I especially like it with the old ads in them. It gives it a sense of time and place. I miss Box 13, but Let George Do It and Johnny Dollar are great. Rogues Gallery is basically good, but I guess I've grown used to the goofy Cloud 8-bits. I have to admit, I don't always listen to the commentary, mostly because I want to get the whole radio program in before I get to work. Anyway, Adam, thanks for the efforts every week and keep them coming. Well, thanks so much, Keith. That'll about do it for the listener comments. I do have a programming note coming up next week. If you saw on the counter, this is episode number 495, which means next week we'll hit episode 500. Well, for our 500th episode, we'll have a special 8 days from today, Saturday following, on September 24th. And it's a Lux Radio Theater episode, To the Ends of the Earth. It's a 1-hour episode starring Mr. Dick Powell in a bit of a different role than the Richard Rogue and Richard Diamond role. This one's very realistic and educational as well as relevant to today. It's an hour-long special. I hope you will be listening on next Saturday, the 24th. You definitely want to check that out. But that'll do it for this week. Join us back here next week for our 500th episode, another episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. And of course on Monday it'll be back to Barrie Craig, Confidential Investigator. If you have a comment, send it to box13 at greatdetectives.net. Follow us over on Twitter at Radio Detectives and give us a call, 208-991-4783. But from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.